Hello, Blankies. This is Downtown Griffey Nooms with a little emergency pre-episode announcement. So, March 23rd, 2020 is going to mark the 5th anniversary of Blank Check with Griffin and David. Or technically the 5th anniversary of Griffin and David Present the Phantom Podcast, but tomato. The point is, in order to commemorate this colossal event, because it is very tough to make the 5, we're going to be not only doing a special 5th anniversary checktacular episode on our main feed, but we're also going to be doing some live shows. Fuck it, we're doing it live, folks. Okay? March 23rd, Monday, Bell House Theater, Brooklyn, 7 p.m. Show sold out. It already sold out. I apologize. We put it up for pre-sale on Patreon, and crazy enough, it sold out very shortly. So we're adding a second show, 10 p.m. that same night, March 23rd. Tickets for that are going to go on sale Monday, January 20th, this Monday at noon, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're announcing this very clearly so that the general public, the people who are not Patreon subscribers, have a good shot at getting those tickets because we feel bad that you were left out in the cold on the first one. That having been said, if you want to come to the early show, you can't make the late show, maybe hop on the Blank Check Reddit, try to come up with some sort of ticket swap with a checkmate who bought tickets for the earlier. I will also say 2 shows are going to be entirely different. They're going to have different subjects. So if you're a completist, you might want to come to both. Might want to complete the set. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you for listening. And now, please listen to this very normal episode of Blank Check with Griffin and David.
Blank Check with Griffin and David. Blank Check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
What do you love about the podcast, Griffin?
Many things. What I love most about the podcast, it's that every now and again, not often, but occasionally, you get to be a part of justice being done. And that is really quite a thrill when it happens.
Okay, let's do that quote. It's good, right?
That's it. Because I'll tell you, the rest of these quotes, a little rocky.
Right.
Not easy to turn into jokes.
No.
The key words that you would replace with podcast are words that should not be removed.
What about the joke that's told? What do you call 1,000 podcasters at the bottom of the ocean?
Good start. Chained together at the bottom of the ocean. It's a good start. Do you know the tagline for this movie?
It's a good long one. Right?
It would split into two little.
Right. We got to split.
No one would take on his case until one man was willing to take on the system. That is so generic.
It's very 90s.
There could
very
be
90s.
100 people in a room and 99 people say they won't take the case.
That was the European tagline for the film.
when Lady Gaga was working in marketing.
One person was Bradley Cooper.
That's a weird. That's not said in the movie. It's not like he's like, I tried 99 people.
He tried 7.
Yeah, he tried, I think 9.
He says 9. Yeah, well, it's only 1 9 away.
I guess so. The poster as well might as well be like the poster for the Pelican Brief.
Totally.
Like it would be the poster for any Grisham thriller.
Yeah.
High contrast, black and white, and then there's a big gavel.
Yeah.
Just so you're like, oh, we're going to court.
Tom Hanks looks 0% sick.
He looks like Tom Hanks in a suit.
Right. Because even at the beginning of this movie, I forgot how much he is like.
He's already
he's emaciated. They're clearly putting a lot of makeup on him to show that he's covering up his lesions.
Right.
From the first frame of this film, Tom Hanks does not look like America's funny man Tom Hanks.
When I was a kid, my parents rented this movie on VHS, right?
Yeah, and they were like, it's a sequel to Toy Story.
No, I think I just saw the cover and I was like, what's this movie? And they were like, I'm like, oh, it's about Philadelphia. I mean, there's just nothing on that cover that you'd be like, well, I clearly understand the plot of this.
You look at the poster and
it's
you're
called
like,
Philadelphia.
Right, you're like, this must be a true story about like something about like the city of Philadelphia.
Right, exactly.
This must be about like city planning or like...
Yeah, some like miscarriage of justice in Philadelphia,
right,
which is about, sort of.
Yeah.
It's not very Philadelphia-centric.
I feel like stand-ups have been making this joke for like 2 decades now, but it does feel a little bit like if they made a film about someone dying of cancer and called it New York City.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I understand the brotherly love thing, but it comes up once in the movie. It's not like the movie is like very much about it being in Philadelphia.
Right.
It's, I guess, just that idea of Philadelphia is the city with that.
Like if it was
Motto.
about a character that throws batteries,
It would, well, that would be called.
Philadelphia.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
and then that would be appropriate.
Okay, Ben has decided that this episode's going to be him ragging on Philadelphia. It's the classic New Jersey
I
Philadelphia
honestly
rivalry.
didn't see it coming. I forgot. Of course he hates Philadelphia.
Philly stinks.
Okay. Ben, do you want a moment here to soapbox, or do you want to just pepper it throughout the next 4.5 hours?
I'm gonna pep.
Okay. Well, this is a podcast called Blank Check.
Yes.
With Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
Mm-hmm. David.
But thanks for introducing yourself. It's a podcast
I
about.
said David.
I know. I said it with a little more pep.
I am David. Bang, bang, bang. That's me banging
bang
the gavel.
the gavel. It's a podcast about filmographies. Directors who have massive success early on in their career and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. Sometimes those checks clear. Sometimes they bounce, baby. And this is a miniseries on the films of Jonathan Demme. And this is arguably his first big blank check.
Yeah. 100%.
This is a huge cash in.
Not only is it that, it deposits. It's a hit.
That's the argument our
Big
friend
hit.
Emily Vanderwerf, guest last week,
Yeah.
made, which is like when people were saying like, I don't know if Jonathan Demme qualifies for this. It's like that is one of the biggest blank check movies of all time. And the fact that it cleared in the way that it did is kind of insane.
$200 million worldwide.
Yeah. I mean,
is
I just
wild.
think that's something one of the many things people probably don't remember about this movie. is
Yeah.
that they probably think like, oh, whatever, it did fine and won an Oscar. Like that.
It was a big
It was one of the
commercial
top
success.
10 films of the year, basically.
It was number 1 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
it also is the movie that elevates Tom Hanks from being like beloved leading man to like America's greatest movie star. Like this is the film that transforms him.
It made him the voice of like important stuff.
Totally.
It
Yeah.
did. And it's interesting that it did when you think about it. And at the same time, we've all seen his Oscar speech for this film.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll discuss it again.
the only
You know, he won Best
I was going to
Actor.
say, is this the only film in this miniseries that inspired a Kevin Kline comedy?
I mean, it's just insane. That is just an insane factor.
Yeah.
But I rewatched it last night after watching the movie just to remind myself. Because everyone remembers the end where he's like, there are too many, angels,
angels
heaven,
up in
crowd.
heaven. Yeah.
But the whole speech sounds like a fucking presidential campaign.
Yeah.
Like, and you're like, is he? I mean, obviously he memorized this or something. He's not just doing this off the dome, but like he ends with saying, "God bless America."
Yeah.
But
yeah.
he had one of those campaign years where
He was winning a lot,
His Golden
right.
Globe speech is great and also
Yeah.
is entirely different, zero overlap.
Yeah.
He donates it. He dedicates it to a bunch of specific actors. There's this crazy stat that I think Demme cast over 50 actors in the film who actually had AIDS. And by the time the movie came out, 40 of them had died.
Wow.
And so Hanks' Golden Globe speech was him like dedicating
Right.
the memory to a bunch of specific actors in this movie. What's his name? Ron Vetner, who's the actor who plays the one sort of member of the law firm
Yeah,
who
this sort of,
vouches for him.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
He died.
Mm-hmm.
He was died of AIDS.
Right.
I think shortly after this movie came out, and it's one of the most horrifying stories I've ever read, which is he had a massive AIDS-related heart attack while on a plane with his partner, and they were 3 hours away from landing. And his partner
my
was like,
God.
I had never seen a dead body before, and I suddenly had to spend 3 hours sitting next to my dead partner,
Oh my God.
waiting.
All right.
Isn't that the worst?
Yeah.
Thank you,
okay.
Dr. Sleep.
Oh boy.
No.
But yes, it's kind of crazy. This movie was such a big hit.
Right.
After this, Hanks has a run for over a decade where he does 11 straight $100 million grossers.
Yeah.
I mean, including like Forrest Gump being the number one film of its year, Toy Story being the number one film of its year, Saving Private Ryan being the number one film of its year. Like it was just like
Mm-hmm.
he was the guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was constantly getting Oscar nominations or wins. He wins back to back.
It's when he became America's dad. 'Cause he had been like America's like fun cousin or older brother, and then he was like, no. And I think those speeches for Philadelphia kind of helped solidify that.
That's the thing. It was like he's ready for this moment. He's ready to take on the responsibility of being
That's what I'm saying.
the president of Hollywood.
Exactly. It sounds like he's running a campaign.
And I think that there's something about his character in this being from Pennsylvania and his character from Saving Private Ryan being from Pennsylvania, because it kind of locates him in like it's not quite middle America, but it's sort of homey.
You're doing another hint.
And it's still sort of liberal.
Yeah,
I mean, I did Saving Private Ryan, right?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right, because there is something
And it's my second Shyamalan movie. This is, right? All movies set in Philadelphia are directed by him, right?
Yes.
He wrote Streets of Philadelphia.
He wrote Streets of Philadelphia.
It was about the streets of Philadelphia.
That's what the song
That was
is
his
about.
inspiration.
But it was very confusing when I was a kid, because I would say I like that Bruce Springsteen song Philadelphia, and people would it would be, no, that's not actually the song. Philadelphia is the Neil Young song.
Right.
True.
Yeah.
Ben.
Yeah.
You're a New Jerseyan.
Born in
The
bred.
Jersey Devil.
Now, of course, Bruce Springsteen also a New Jerseyan. How
Hell
do you
yeah.
feel about the fact that he won an Oscar and one of his better known songs is about Philadelphia?
His only Oscar.
I don't like it.
Oh!
I remember at the time being aware that people were kind of like, yeah, this is sort of outside his comfort zone. Philadelphia.
He crossed state lines.
Right.
Is that why
This
you
fucking turncoat.
is that why you quit the E Street Band, Ben?
Yes.
Boss, I love you. I can't go in the tunnel with you.
And then you handed your do-rag to Steve Ensign. Like, now
Would
it's
you
your
be
turn.
surprised at all if we opened up the booklet of an E Street Band CD and just saw that Ben was like the triangle player?
Well, you're the girl he invites up on stage in
Courtney Cox, yes. Ben is Courtney Cox.
Well, also, look, we do know Bruce Springsteen loves redheads.
It's true.
Ben is his type.
I am definitely his type.
Yeah.
Also, there's this famous song that Bruce, I found out later, covered called Jersey Girl. That was a Tom Waits song.
Sure.
So again, another kind of sad moment for me.
Right, that he didn't originate that.
Yeah.
No, it's just fine. I mean, Atlantic City, that's about Jersey. That's a Bruce song.
That's a good one.
I'm trying to think of like very Jersey specific Bruce songs. Obviously, a lot of his oeuvre.
Run into the turnpike.
He wrote the original score for Jersey Girl.
Yes,
He did.
Yes, he
Yeah.
did. And he also shot that film and edited it.
He
You
was
know,
the DP.
right.
Yeah.
He starred in it.
Starred in it. Right. Played the Jersey Girl.
Well, there's he has a song called Taylor Ham, Egg and Cheese, off of Exit
Right.
29 on the Parkway South.
He has this song called like I love to watch The Sopranos, and it's not clear whether or not I understand that the characters are unsympathetic. That's a good song
I love
about
that
being
one.
from New Jersey.
Depiction does not equal endorsement.
Now
You know who's very good in Jersey Girl? Sir William Smith.
Sir William Smith.
Will Smith
He's a small role, correct?
as himself, and he's really fucking good.
When's he
Really?
bad?
It's like one of his better.
No. It might be
Little-
true, but when's he bad?
Winter Still.
Right? Like, are there things where he's bad? There are, right?
Winter's Tale is arguably the only one, because even things that are bad, I think he's very committed in.
He's usually committed. I'm trying to think, like, what's a bad Will Smith?
Like, I don't
performance?
think he's bad in Suicide Squad.
No, he's good in Suicide.
I just think
or
right,
whatever.
Right, but he's
fine.
like doing his work.
He's fine in Wild Wild West, even though that movie's
Yeah.
bad.
Yes, although that is a little bit him, like,
Coasting.
yeah, bringing out the old bag of tricks, and
Yeah.
you're like, come on, man, like,
But
you
it's
know,
pretty electric.
yeah. Wild Wild West might be the closest to where I'm like, you're not doing much for me here, buddy.
I don't really like him in After Earth.
Yeah, you're right.
You know
He's
what?
bad
That's
in that
maybe
movie.
the worst
He's
one.
bad.
Yeah,
in that
because he's
movie.
doing. I mean,
He's all wrong.
I mean,
Working
speaking
against
of another
all of
Shyamalan
his-
film,
yeah.
so yeah, like, yeah, he's doing that weird accent.
And
That's a weird
all his
movie.
charisma is being sucked out of him, sort
Right.
of
Well, he's
intentionally.
passing it on to his son.
Yeah, trying.
He is the genie, though.
He was the genie, right?
Yeah.
And-
Well, he is current still.
Yeah, you're right. He actually retains those powers.
And by the time this episode comes out, he probably will have won Best Supporting Actor, right? At the Oscars?
you never know,
On the record.
right?
I think Guy Ritchie's win really is going to be a win for that whole film.
Oh,
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They'll just
Yeah.
be like, here, right? He's the Alfonso
I
Cuarón.
He's
tried
so
to watch.
overdue, too.
I tried to watch Aladdin on a plane
Yeah.
not too long ago, and I had to turn it off. And like, I have a really like plane movie like
Yeah.
tolerance. Like, I watched Yesterday. Ugh. Like, I watched that whole thing. But
Wait,
like
you don't think that movie made sense?
Yesterday,
You don't think that movie earned all of its sense?
Yesterday, that
Yeah.
movie's airtight logic.
Yeah.
Just like try to pull a string, you can't.
It's
You
just
know,
all there.
I'm gonna try and untangle
Yeah.
it. I can't do it.
It's just no.
Everything makes sense. perfect.
You don't like that
sense.
movie takes place in an alternate reality where the second someone gets dumped, someone else steps forward and goes, actually, I've always had a crush on you. You will not be single for longer than a
Don't
minute.
worry. Yeah, that's perfect.
Oh god.
But yeah, I couldn't finish Aladdin. It's so boring.
Yeah, that's my problem with all those Disney remakes that are very similar to the. It's like I'm just like, yeah, I've seen this movie and somehow it's longer and slower this time. Like it's just sort of like, what do you got for me?
I still haven't seen Lion King.
Well, that one's unwatchable. At least Aladdin, you're like, hey, look, it's Will Smith, right?
Right.
I want to bring up something that's been bugging me for a couple months now.
Here we go.
When we did our Lion King episode, I stated the fact that the movie was half an hour longer. And you said, no, it's not because of credits.
Oh, sure, right.
But that argument makes no sense because both of them have credits.
Sure, but I think the Disney credits are very short, aren't they?
I don't think so.
Let's see, 118 for The Lion King.
Uh-huh.
John Favreau's The Lion King.
That is so many tech people. It's ostensibly
88 for
an animated film.
yeah.
I think they both have very long credits.
All right, maybe.
Your argument was the animated film.
I watched that stupid Favreau movie. If it's a half hour long, I don't know what he added. There's
So
like two
much.
things that suck.
A bunch
but
of
that's
pauses.
It wasn't half an hour worth. There were some pauses probably.
Yeah.
Contemplative.
There is that scene where
Chekovian.
Zazu just pauses for 20 minutes.
And
just
you hear
holds on.
a gunshot in the distance. It's very Chekhov. Yeah. A violin string snapping. Everyone looks up.
Our guest today is Richard Lawson.
Oh, hello.
Of course. We should mention him from Vanity Fair and Little Gold Man.
Mm-hmm.
Stop making podcasts. We're talking about Philadelphia.
Yep.
A movie where, in my mind, so the first time I saw this movie was probably 7 or 8 years ago when it was on Netflix streaming.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember not even considering.
Back in the days when every movie was on Netflix.
Yes,
streaming.
right. Those the golden days.
Right.
When Netflix was a public.
I mean, it is streaming on Netflix now. That's how I watched it. But
It is
Yeah.
actually currently streaming.
But it is one of 4 movies.
it won't
on
be when
Netflix.
this airs. I'm
Right.
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's classified under vintage movies, classic movies, black and white movies because
Yes.
of the poster.
Yeah.
Okay. Go on. So you'd never seen it before, and you saw it like 8 years ago on
I remember
Netflix.
flipping through the channels when I was in college. I think the communal TV in the lounge of the dorms or whatever,
Mhm.
and seeing the Aria scene and being like, "This is really weird.
Mhm.
Why didn't anyone tell me that Philadelphia is this weird?"
Mhm.
Because I bought into. I feel like the cultural reputation
It's
this movie got immediately. which
cheesy
is,
Oscar
This
bait.
is the ultimate austere, issues-driven,
And it's
Oscar
like
film.
sanded down and not risky and like
Right.
whatever. Blah,
It's
right,
kind
that's
of
the rep.
it for a long time. It was the stand-in,
Yes.
Totally.
like representative of that kind of movie.
Which is insane that that's this
Yeah.
movie's
Here's
reputation
how I
because this is the outlier. Like, this is what all of them should be. If
I would
Oscar
agree
films were
with
like
that.
this, Oscar films wouldn't have a bad reputation.
He's a better filmmaker than almost anyone, which is part of what
Yes.
he's bringing to the table.
Really,
It's just-
watching
he's a good
this
filmmaker.
whole filmography, you're kind of like...
This is an exceptional
You can't
filmmaker.
argue that he had, like, the best body of work ever because
No.
it's he's got stinkers and whatever,
He's
but it
more
is,
of-
like, he's kind of one of the best filmmakers who ever lived.
I mean, you can just make a conversation.
what I like about it is that when a movie that could just be pretty straightforward and still have an emotional impact and maybe an
Yeah.
awards impact, he's just like, no, I'm going to actually like make a movie that's like artful. But I think part of the reason that its reputation has been sort of muddied is that at the time, and since certainly like Larry Kramer wrote an op-ed
Yes.
about how much he
Yes.
hated the movie and how it wasn't the movie of, and I see those criticisms. I do. I think in the lens of hindsight, the movie looks better maybe than it did in the
I
moment.
think so, too.
But I think that coupled with just the regular Hollywood narrative about like a feel-good Oscar movie, not feel-good, but
Right.
issue movie, Oscar movie, that also then was sort of deemed like a bad gay movie, like the wrong gay movie.
It
Yeah.
got that.
And then it kind of just got buried by this kind of legacy. And then rewatching it for this podcast, I was like, holy shit, like this is actually like a beautiful movie.
It's a beautiful movie. It's a daring movie
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Not so much in what we're talking about, what Larry Kramer is talking about so much, but like just in like you wouldn't make a movie this way anymore.
No, absolutely not.
Which is probably part of our like reverence of it from afar. And you're right that like
Yeah.
in 1993, that's a pressure cooker time. AIDS is very much like ongoing and not remotely solved, and the government is barely like acknowledging it still, right? Like it's still
Right.
this sort of
Angels
like,
in America's on Broadway in 93.
yeah, it's still this like people are
it's
like shaking the gates, being like, "What are you going to do about
Right.
this?" And so
Yeah.
this movie maybe feels a little tepid,
Yeah.
Well, the weird
and it gets
origins-
tagged with the
yes.
kiss thing. And I feel
Right.
like
Right.
it's never gotten over that. There is the brief kiss, the sort of chaste
Yeah.
Yeah.
hospital kiss, but like that his relationship with Antonio Banderas is pretty on screen, pretty chaste. And,
and there's this Janet Maslin review where she's like, the Antonio Banderas boyfriend character is God, I want to find her exact line because I find it really dismissive and shitty. But she essentially says like it would be insulting to even call it a sketch of a character. And to which I go like, explain to me how the depiction of that character is any different than the depiction of Denzel's wife in the movie.
Right. He's a supporting character. I mean, I don't know.
Right. Like, I feel like those relationships are given equal amount of weight in this film. The only difference maybe being that, like, there's
Less kissing.
Right. But it's not like the Denzel-wife relationship is really hot and heavy.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, they just had a baby.
And because the core relationship is obviously him and Denzel.
Yeah.
And like the movie is like a roadmap toward empathy,
yes,
and that's kind of how it functioned in like popular culture back then. And so I'm willing to forgive if some spouse characters are like not quite fully drawn, because like that's not what the movie's about.
I'm like, that's like, a larger issue with spouse characters in films like this usually being half written.
But wait, there was something. So I think it got tagged with that. It got tagged with what you're talking about. It didn't get a Best Picture nomination,
which is kind of crazy.
And I think
and didn't get Best Director.
Right, and so maybe that hurt it a little bit. That like, if you look at it on paper, you're like, well, that's the Tom Hanks Oscar movie, but like that's what that was.
And I think also it just got overshadowed by Forrest Gump the next year, where everyone was like, the definitive Tom Hanks movie of the early '90s was Forrest Gump.
And that movie did a lot for, I feel like, for gay relations in America.
Forrest Gump?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No,
right?
absolutely.
Like that was the landmark.
Yeah.
Movie.
No, I mean, I'm
perfect.
There's a lot of like gay categorization. I'm a Sally Field queen. Like.
When I watch Forrest Gump, the whole time I just yell over and over again, nothing weird about this movie, no problems. I just keep yelling it.
I learned a bunch about history from that movie.
Yeah, totally.
None of you folks listened to Edward Norton Lock the Gate, right?
I didn't listen to that, although I certainly have read like 45 Edward Norton interviews. I should have asked to interview him. Everyone got to interview him. His movie blew. I just didn't want to be like, it's always weird where you're like, do they know that I think their movie's a big old
I was
doo-doo?
Interviewing Tracy Letts for the podcast, for our podcast, Little Gold Men at work. That episode will have aired long after before this goes on air. But anyway, and he started the interview. I asked him a first question. He was like, well, wait, let's back up here because you didn't like the movie, did you? It was for Ford vs. Ferrari. And I was like, huh? I guess I had tweeted something that like
you
I
said
fell
that
asleep.
It made you go zzz.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, no, it's just because it was late at night and whatever. But I
Yeah.
guess his publicist had read that to him.
And related
and
to
then
him.
booked this interview. And I was like, why
are you doing that? That's like the conference call and getting someone to say something embarrassing about the other person. Edward Norton on his WTF weirdly goes to bat for Forrest Gump, like very empathetically.
Edward!
And he was like, but he's like, I understand the reputation that movie has. I think that movie is very canny and has a lot more bite than people give it credit for being, which I just thought was such a bizarre. I would not expect Edward Norton to be like.
Why not? He's like the king of like, let me stick up for the shit people don't like right now.
I don't know, but that's like a weird movie for him to be.
It's funny. I mean, but I've heard that take. You know, where it's like, oh, come on, Forrest Gump is a satire. And I'm like,
right, sly.
I'm like,
it's
being there is a satire. And Forrest Gump is kind of like watered down being there with more sort of boomer, sort of nostalgia.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
I don't think Forrest Gump is biting at all.
And that is a movie that deals with AIDS in a way that is really
that's
uncomfortable.
that's the joke.
Right, no, I know. I'm
terrible.
gonna state it directly.
Oh, Robert
AIDS as punishment for
for having sex.
Right, which this movie is trying to like counter that argument with every fiber
This
of
movie
its
has a
being.
very like sort of clearly kind of inserted scene. I'm not saying inserted in a bad way, but like clearly importantly a highlighted scene where the woman who has the transfusion is like, I don't see myself as any different than this person.
Exactly.
Where like they're trying to like sort of maybe like remove some of those stereotypes.
Yeah.
people have
And I
in
think
mind.
it cops to the fact that Andrew, he had sex with a guy in a movie theater, like he was at a porn theater, like it doesn't desexualize him because that obviously is a part of the narrative in a way, in a big way. But yeah, I mean, it's not shaming in any way the way that Forrest Gump certainly is.
Janet Maslin's line was, Andrew's domestic relationship with Miguel is presented so sketchily that it barely seems real.
Right. I don't
buy that either.
I don't feel that watching the movie.
I don't either. I think both of them are so good. I think one of the things he's trying to do is not because he is skittish about showing sexual intimacy between gay people on screen, but because so often gay people in movies were demonized or sexualized to show a sort of like emotional intimacy, I think was more of a priority for him. And I think that really comes across.
Yeah.
Like, I think they speak to each other with the intimacy of two people who know each other that well for that long, are that deeply in love with each other.
Hanks talked about, like, there were some scenes that they didn't include. Like, there's a scene of them in bed together that's like a deleted scene.
It's like them just talking in bed.
Where there was maybe a little more physical intimacy that maybe the studio. Who's the studio again?
It's Columbia.
TriStar, right? Yeah. Balked at.
Yeah.
But yes, obviously, as context, we should note, right, like, part of Demi's reason for making this movie was the tremendous guilt he felt about the Silence of the Lambs.
Well, so I did some more research. It's a two-step thing. Okay. In 1988, his friend gets diagnosed with AIDS. Sure. He calls up Ron Nisander, I always get his name right, Niswaner, who had done much of the work on Swing Shift, uncredited, for what he had tried to shoot. That shooting script was mostly Ron's. And he calls him up and goes like, my friend just got diagnosed with AIDS. This is the first time it's become like a personal thing for me. I am so overwhelmed by this. I feel like I need to make a movie about it. Like, this is the only way I know how to process this. And I feel like we need to do this culturally. Like, someone needs to make the movie showing people with AIDS as human beings. Yeah. And not longtime companion and the band played on where it's sort of very...
That's more procedural sort of...
And it's
historical accounting. Like,
right, and the story
side.
is just the illness. Right. I think they want to find a way to make a film that starred someone who was HIV positive that wasn't solely about them dying.
It's in the comfortable packaging of a courtroom drama, which is a very familiar trope for people, and so it's a good.
In the '90s was like the hottest.
Well, this is the crazy
around,
thing.
Right.
So they commit in the '80s. They're like, we're gonna do this, and then they talk it up, and they're like, this is what would really actually change the culture. Is like, if we made a big studio film with movie stars. And that was their like design. But they're designing this before Silence of the Lambs, where the idea of getting that made seemed probably impossible. But they work on the script for years and years and years at the starting point of, we want to make up a story that can center around a HIV positive protagonist and can sort of show these people in a greater light and, remove a lot of the stigma. The original idea was they were going to do something closer to Dallas Buyers Club, weirdly. They said their original idea was more of a thriller heist movie that was about getting medicine across the border. They went through 1,000 different genres. They went through 1,000 different characters, different situations, and then they finally landed on the courtroom drama because they were like, that is a thing that gives him agency and keeps him invested in the story even while he's dying. Because we don't want to do a deathbed movie. We don't want to do a movie that's him just going through treatment, and getting worse and worse and worse and worse. We want there to be some sort of victory that can still be achieved.
Sure. It is also based on a real person.
It was loosely based on a couple real people.
And
but
one of the families got upset because they thought that they had sort of mined their dead sons.
Well, they didn't get money for it. So they sued and they got money for it.
Right.
But I also think it is to this movie's advantage that it is not that concerned with being a based on a true story.
It's not. It's very consciously not advertising itself as that. But I mean, they
saw a case that gave them a precedent for this would be a good structure for 100%. This movie.
And it sets up the world of Glass and Unbreakable, like, I think, really well.
Totally.
Just in subtle ways, but crucial ones.
Do you know what he calls that now?
I do, but I've forgotten, so you're going to have to remind me.
It's like the East Rail 1717 trilogy.
Something like that.
I'm getting the number wrong.
It's the name of the train crash. You're correct. Right.
But that's his version of like Three Cornettos is like all three movies are about this train crash.
The East Rail 177 trilogy, which is weird because you could just call it the Unbreakable trilogy, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, look, you can buy a box set now with a labeled East Rail 177.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to.
You could take the train.
Don't take that train. It's going to crash. Mr. Glass has been sabotaging it.
But yeah.
Anyway, you're right. Mr. Glass obviously is in the film. We see him, and he
orchestrates the entire thing.
No, he just has a 20-minute monologue about comic books in the middle of the movie, and it's very subtle and nuanced.
I love that fucking movie.
Sure.
Yes, obviously Silence of the Lambs gives him the juice to make whatever the fuck he wants next. And it is, to his credit, that also now burdened with this sort of sense of,
he felt bad.
Yeah, I was trying to.
He'd been picketed for that movie, by
it's not
LGBT
shame or embarrassment, but I think he genuinely
activists.
was such an empathetic guy and tried so hard to do right, and has talked a lot about how much he believed in the importance of what you put on screen, how much that can change dialogue.
Yeah.
And perceptions of things, and how we have a responsibility to not put the wrong sort of depictions on screen and things like that. I think that really ate at him. And so whereas this had already been a script that he was working on for a couple of years, this just became the thing that he put all of his juice behind.
Everything Griffin just said is not true. What happened was Bruce Springsteen wrote a song about the streets of Philadelphia.
Yeah, Bruce Springsteen.
He walked up and down them.
Yeah.
His bus broke down on the way to New York City, and he was like, well, yeah.
And then he called Demi and was like, I was just on the streets of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
All kinds
No,
of
he said,
stories.
I was just on the streets of Philadelphia.
And Jimmy went, no, like that.
Jimmy?
Yeah.
Demi. I said Demi.
You said Jimmy.
I said Demi.
You said Jimmy.
I
Jimmy
was
Demi.
Trying to say Demi.
Okay. Hymnsy New Year!
Hey!
Woo! Noisemaker.
Should old acquaintance hymns forgot? I don't know.
Should all hair loss be prevented? That's maybe something, right?
Well,
Well,
yeah. You've heard us talking about hymns in the past.
you heard us talk about
How
hymns.
they're helping guys look their best, and if you haven't,
That's all they want to do.
time to see what they're all about.
I wanna
Listen,
help some guys look their
66%
best.
of men start to lose their hair by the age of 35.
2/3.
And once you've noticed that thinning hair can be too late, it can start to move backwards, get some bald spots. Best thing to do to prevent more hair loss is to do something about it while you still got some hair on your head.
It's time to grab the new year by the follicles.
Yeah, no, don't grab too tight.
No,
You want to keep it on.
don't want to
there.
yank them out. But here's to a year of personal growth, okay?
Okay, forhims.com. It's a one-stop shop for hair loss, skincare, sexual wellness for men, and it's time to write a new 2020 chapter, one in which you have hair. Okay? Hims is helping guys, as I said, be the best version of themselves with licensed physicians and FDA-approved products that help treat hair loss.
We're not talking about snake oil pills, no gas station counter supplements.
No, it's prescription solutions that are backed by science, and it means you don't have to have awkward in-person doctor's visits or long pharmacy
You
lines.
hate them. You hate them.
It connects you to real doctors online, which could save you hours, and it's completely confidential and discreet. You just answer a few questions, a doctor reviews it, they would determine if it's right for you, and they prescribe you medication that is shipped directly to your door.
And this holiday season, you should let it grow, let it grow, let it grow with Hims, even though it's January now.
Dive into 2020 hair first. Right now, our listeners can get started with their first month free.
Free.
Go to forhims.com/check. That's forhims.com/check. Now, prescription requires an online consultation with a physician who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. The offer is valid only if prescribed. There's a 3-month minimum subscription. Additional restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information.
And now you can take a breath.
Whew.
And I want everyone to just remember that's forhims.com/check.
Yep. I love how this film opens with
The streets of
a
Philadelphia.
very long credit sequence, which
Mhm.
you don't get enough of those anymore
Nope.
anyway.
It's a thing we've talked about in other Demis too. I love that he credits every
He
single
really-
actor with a line.
the actor, it becomes a brag where like
Right.
Anna Devere Smith is like
Yeah.
26th
Right.
bill
Right.
or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Where he's just like, no, you won't. I got more. I got so many
You know,
character actors in this thing.
Karen Finley's in that movie.
Yeah.
She plays one of the doctors.
And Dowd.
Chandra Wilson.
Young and
Chandra
Dowd.
Wilson?
Yeah. Playing
Um,
a character named Chandra.
Yeah.
And then what are the credits playing over? Joanna was just like, man, you never see credits like this anymore.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, well, it's Philadelphia,
It's the
right?
footage of the streets of
and the
Philadelphia.
credits are like pre-call me by your name, like handwriting
I
fonts.
love
you know?
the handwriting
Mhm.
font. Reminded me most of all of Beverly Hills Cop, one of my favorite opening
Sure.
credits,
Sure.
where it's just the streets of Detroit.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, just like, give me a little,
Well, the one
the scene.
warm me up.
the one that it reminds me of is Dog Day Afternoon.
That's another one.
Right.
Any of those where it's just like, take the cast iron out,
Right.
put it on the oven,
Yeah, throw out some
turn on
Elton
the
John.
flames, just warm it up.
Yeah.
You're warming me up to
Yeah.
being in Philadelphia.
You know, Philadelphia is a people, not a place.
Okay.
And that's what Demi's trying to explain.
Right.
It doesn't matter if their ship crashes out of the
That's
sky.
That's
Philadelphia
why at
has
the
to
end of the
relocate
movie, everyone gets on a spaceship.
the border in New Jersey. Yeah. Right. This isn't one of these movies with the sort of like pompous self-seriousness of like, look at us, we're making the definitive
It doesn't indicate, while also still feeling like, I mean, maybe it's just hindsight, but like of like 26 years, but like it feels like it's aware of its solemn duty.
Yes.
And yet doesn't get caught up in that.
Yeah, it doesn't feel too self-important.
Yeah,
Right.
When you read like Nice Wanner talking about it, and even Demi talking about before he passed, it was such a dangerous line they were sort of towing because they were like, we want to make a big Hollywood AIDS movie, but we want to make an AIDS movie that doesn't feel like it is the AIDS movie, like it is the film.
Right, because you're always going to be in trouble with that statement.
With
We're going to
definitive,
make the Hollywood AIDS movie.
And they both said that they were terrified making this movie because they knew like everything was going to get so picked over as like, this is the one that everyone's been waiting for.
Yeah.
And every element is going to be sort of taken apart for whether or not this is the correct representation. And so I think they very smartly tried to really focus in on a story that they could use as like an entry point for the things they want to say and the dialogue they want to open up in the culture, and not trying to make a movie about everything. But then the film's reputation has so much become it's about everything. And even like the seriousness of that poster is so different than the handwritten font and the sort of expressionistic qualities of the filmmaking itself and the humor to the movie. Were just like, I just for years was like, as like an insane movie dork who in high school was like trying to get through Oscar movies all the time. I was like, I don't ever have to watch Philadelphia, right? I mean, that's just like, I know what that is. I've seen people parody this type of thing. I know, I see the poster. I don't want to watch this. And then it was like watching that like 3 minutes on TV, flipping through channels. I was like, oh no, this is a Jonathan Demme movie? This isn't just him like doing that weird watered down thing that happens to people after they win an Oscar.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's genuinely an artful movie. And like, I think it also, it has a humor to it that I think is really great. You know, I just, at Toronto this year, I saw Just Mercy, which is this Destin Daniel Cretton movie about a very serious issue about, you know, wrongful imprisonment, and it's well acted. It's an interesting story, but it's just so like
that film
straightforward
is
and
everything.
plain and just like literal, and there's no humor. It's just so, and it's like you can still make the important message and have it be,
because that's what Short Term 12 does. I feel like we've been talking about this a lot in the podcast, but it is that weird thing where it's like he made his film that deals with serious things, that doesn't feel burdened by the weight of, we're talking about serious films, that has personality, has eccentricities, is funny, and then he's followed up with 2 films where he feels totally flattened out by, I need to make a serious commercial film.
I think the thing he ran into with that movie, that is the thing this movie avoids, is that when you're making a movie about a real person who has done great, undeniable acts, you do not want to fuck with them.
Right.
And so the movie is very plainly presenting them, and there's nothing wrong with that, like, you know, in and of itself.
But you wish it had more personality.
But it lacks personality.
Right.
It feels a little bit like, and then this happened, and you're like, oh, good. And it's like, it was good.
Yeah.
Let's move to the next thing that happened. And you're like, oh, this is good too. And you're like, and the movie's like, it was good.
I agree.
And we saw that movie you probably were at the premiere, right?
Yeah.
You know, the guy walks out. I'm now blanking on his name.
Michael B. Jordan.
I mean, he did walk out, and he looked great. I'll give you that.
Brian something.
Brian. Brian Stevenson. And you know, he walks out. He gets a huge round of applause, and you're like, this is a serious person. This is a man who's worked on death row to, like, you know, bring humanity and save people. I'm like, yeah, I would feel very indebted to this.
But that's
you know,
why, look,
representing his personal story, right?
The man whose case inspired this film, they should have paid him up front.
Yeah, they should have paid him up front.
But I do think it is the smartest strategic move he made in developing this film to not go, we're going to adapt this court case, but rather go, this gives me an idea for how to
100%.
structure this film. Because the freedom this movie has by being able to weave characters out of whole cloth.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the Denzel character is the entire key to this movie being as interesting as it is.
1000%.
And he's secretly the lead.
He's secretly the lead.
Should have been Oscar nominated.
Hanks is
It's a fantastic
supporting.
performance.
I mean, arguably.
I think
Hanks
nowadays they would have run
I think
Denzel in
so.
lead and Hanks in supporting.
It's not impossible, except for that, of course, Hanks was a big movie star. He's first build and all that. I think they're both leads. The movie is more, in my memory, Denzel really dominated the movie.
Yeah.
And on rewatch, I was like, no, Hanks does, you know, have the first chunk of the movie all to himself. and then has these big scenes sort of interspersed through. So it's not really what I.
But aside from the
remembered.
fact that obviously all of the courtroom scenes are more Denzel showcases.
Of course, and at that point, Hanks is playing a man who struggles to speak. I mean, he's very
and after
infirm.
the first third, you get more of Denzel's home life.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is such a Demi thing to like really, to not make it a binary thing about like, oh, this friendship changed their lives, you know? I feel like he is very smart about not making it feel like, knowing someone with AIDS has cured him of his bigotry.
Right.
Right. That Joanna was like, wait, is the end of this movie going to be that he turns out he's not homophobic anymore? And I'm like, no, it's not like that.
Because it's a movie about
he
the
understands
beginning
that this
of
is
that
a person, exactly.
And I think that Demi and the production team saw the movie as being the beginning of something like that, you know. So it has this meta sort of context. But can we locate Denzel and Tom Hanks where
yes,
because please.
So Hanks had just done League of Their Own the year before, right?
Is that 90s? We can do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
But while I'm just getting the filmography straight as well, I just what's your story with this movie? When did you see it, Richard?
So I saw this movie probably shortly after it came out on video, like when I was probably 10 or 11 years old. So my uncle, my mom's brother, died of AIDS in 1985, along with his partner, all their friends on Fire Island and in New York. And so AIDS had always sort of loomed very large in my like family history, my family lore. And so it felt like this movie that I had to see. And I think, I was young, but I probably understood some things subconsciously about myself that I felt drawn to it. And I have very little memory of seeing it the first time.
Same.
I remember thinking it was sad, you know?
Right.
But now seeing it now, I mean, I can't help but, I think about this going to see Angels of America. I'm going to go see The Inheritance soon. I just think about like, what if like Bobby Finger and Dan Daddario and all like all died? You know, like
crazy.
how fucking surreal that would be, and like it shakes me.
And
to the
even
core.
like my mom was not gay, but lived in New York. Like it was just that. It was You
Like,
have
just your friends
all
just
these
dropping
friends
dead.
who just suddenly all get sick and die in their 30s.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that thing people say of like, we'll never know the loss to culture that AIDS took.
Right.
The toll it took in terms of all the art we never got to see and all the artists who never got to develop and the second acts of their careers that never went on. I mean, my parents were in New York in and around, various art scenes in the 80s. And one year, my mom, as like a birthday present for my dad, years before I was born when they were dating, made this really fucking weird short film where my mom is playing my father. And it's like a 10-minute comedy short that's like a day in the life of Peter Newman. My mom's doing this very bizarre impression of my father in male drag.
Sure.
And
Sounds good.
when it's okay. It won Best Picture that year. But one year, my mom, as a present, like digitized it and brought it on DVD, and like we watched it when I was in like high school or whatever.
Right.
And I'm watching it, and it's like, oh, we're making fun of all the daily parts of his routine, and everyone else in the short are my parents' best friends from that time. And I was watching it, and I was like, who are all of these people? I know none of these people, and 75% of them were, he died of AIDS, she died of AIDS. Like they all had AIDS.
Right.
And the other 25% were my father's gambling
I was about
buddies.
to say, I thought it was more right. It was like half that and then half.
Yeah.
But this guy was your Spooky and this guy was your dad.
But it was that crazy thing where I think back to it and I'm like, by the time I was born, my parents seemingly had very few old friends.
Right.
There was a core group, but you could count them probably on one hand. And then I saw most of my parents' friend base develop throughout my lifetime in a city that they had already been living in, each for over a decade. And I never really thought about, like, why don't they have more friends? Who are they hanging out with before this? It can't just be, like, Susan and Greg. Like, there has to have been more than this. And the answer is that just, like, everyone fucking disappeared. Yeah. Everyone just died horrifically.
But the thing I want to bring up is that after an 80s career that was heavy on comedies, Hanks was beginning to transition into more serious roles.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. And
I just think
this
important
was
to bring
like the one that really was like, okay.
Yes. So
Big's a turning point because he gets an Oscar nomination.
Absolutely.
It's a comedy that then gets
after
taken
his
seriously.
fun earlier career from like Bosom Buddies and then Splash, Man with the Rich
Money
Pit, Big.
Joe versus Volcano.
Joe versus Volcano's a little later. It got Turner and Hooch, but that's your 80s up to the 90s, right?
Turner and Hooch is like kind of his last dumb comedy, right?
Yes.
Because it's after Big, but before Philadelphia.
It depends on how you'd classify Joe versus the Volcano, I would say. But yes. which is
Or the
slightly
tourist
more
or the lady killers.
well, sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Not
Joe
the
versus
tourist,
the terminal.
the terminal, thank you.
Joe versus Volcano is
It's
too esoteric to be considered a big
that's
dumb
what I'm
I mean,
saying,
it's a
right.
John Patrick Shanley movie,
right.
right? It's like
Postman.
Yeah.
Right. Turner and Hooch is like, here's the pitch. It's Hanks with a dog.
Yeah,
And the movie was greenlit,
Right.
before they wrote the script.
And then Jim Belushi did K9, directed by
Yes.
Catherine Bigelow.
1990.
Widowmaker.
So it's important to remember that after Big, he had a slightly rocky few years.
Well, because then Bonfire's right afterwards.
Well, that's what I'm getting to. He has The Burbs, which is good.
Burbs is very good, which we'll
but
hopefully
I think-
cover
I
someday
think it was
on
a
this podcast.
mid-tier hit, not a big hit.
More of a cult hit, was
Right,
disappointing
exactly.
when it came out.
Exactly. Turner and Hooch, no one really wants to be in Turner and
Big
Hooch.
hit, embarrassing.
That movie we were like not allowed to watch in my household growing up because all our friends, of course, had seen it, and my mom just thought it looked crass.
Yeah.
It does look crass. Joe versus the Volcano, which is a pretty famous flop at the time.
Right.
Bonfire of the Vanities, which is a notorious flop.
Yeah.
Like really, even now remember, but really at the time, people were like, oh my God, like this is a disaster.
And like one of the first movies in like sort of a vaguely modern media era where people were all in on reading
Like, let's
about what a
roast this
fucking
shit, right.
disaster
And
it
a
was.
movie-
The book became a bestseller, The Devil's Candy.
a movie I've seen that, I mean,
A book about.
I
the
don't
film.
actually hate the film, but I mean, Hanks is one of the worst things about it. He's
And that's the other
terribly
thing. It's not
cast.
just that the movie is a disaster, but it's also like this is the largest of the film's many problems. Is Hanks in this role?
Him and Griffith are just terrible. They're just
They
terrible.
cast that entire film wrong.
I mean, they just cast big stars, but yeah.
It's kind of stunning. Yeah,
Then he just
because that movie almost works better if you flip Hanks and Willis.
Well, I think Willis is good in that movie. But whatever. Well,
Okay.
one day maybe we'll do De Palma. It's not
Maybe.
impossible.
Holy mackerel.
A lot of movie.
Yeah.
I claim Snake Eyes.
Yeah, let's do it. That's a wild movie.
That's a wild movie.
Snake Eyes kind of fucks.
Yes, it does. So then he kind of takes it easy, and in '92, 2 years later, his next movie is A League of Their Own, which he is amazing in.
But he was not supposed to do that, right? Wasn't it supposed to be someone else? I
That
remember
sounds
him being a
possible.
late
I mean,
replacement.
it's very much a supporting role.
and at the time, it was like, oh, this is a change of pace for Hanks. He's playing an asshole.
he's playing a
Yeah.
jerk. He's playing a
Right.
drunk.
Because even when he was in comedies, he was always playing kind of like the goofy, boyish,
100%. I'm trying to see who he replaced.
That was he replaced someone. I want to say it was a much older actor who was more obvious fit for that character type.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is he's not, that's the thing. He was like, I'm too young for this. And Penny Marshall is like, you're supposed to be young because you're supposed to be a baseball player
Right.
who just got washed up.
Right.
Right.
Like, you're not supposed to be an old guy.
It's hard living. Yeah.
Right. And so he gained all this weight, and it doesn't say.
Yeah,
but
it was someone I'm
I love
forgetting
him
who.
in
It's
that
not like
movie.
Harrison Ford, but it was like someone like that.
And then in 1993, the year Philadelphia comes out, he also is in
Sleepless in Seattle.
which is a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
So he and Denzel both had enormous 1993s.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Because there's the Pelican Brief
Yeah.
for Denzel in 1993. We'll get to Denzel in a second.
Yeah.
I love Sleepless in Seattle. I have seen it 1 million times.
It's a great movie.
Sometimes people come to me and they try to say things like, well, I don't like that film, or I have some objections to the plot of that film, or I have a thing to say about it. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to hear about
I
it.
have never seen it.
Well, that's weird and
Oh,
stupid.
it's
You
good.
should
An
go straight
argument
to hell.
for doing Nora Ephron.
Let's do it.
And you know who has probably the best scene in the movie? Rita
Rosie
Wilson.
O'Donnell.
Rita Wilson has an incredible scene in that movie, but Rosie O'Donnell has a couple incredible. There's a lot of great. David Hyde Pierce has one great scene in that movie.
You know what my favorite character is, though? The City of New York.
It's
Moon
almost
hits your eye like a big pizza pie.
it's a character in the film.
I love Sleepless in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And that really, I think, is the movie that's like Tom Hanks is, as you're saying, he's sort of the People magazine cover guy you want to marry in a sweater. Like, this is it. This is America's man.
The sweater's a big part of it, and it also is that thing
We
where you're just
agree.
like, who could not like Tom Hanks?
Right.
Like, even if he isn't
Come
your
on.
favorite, there's nothing. It's weird. He's specific and weird enough as an actor without having any type of personality quirk that could be off-putting to a group of people.
He's
You know what I'm
Pennsylvania.
saying?
He's Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
He's just sort of
where
like
it's like exactly.
Yeah.
He's been around forever. We all agree.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think that's partly why he can take a role like this without too much concern about his
Although,
star image.
you
Even though
know,
certainly it was
yes.
at the time a quote unquote risky thing to do.
I mean, no
right?
one at
You
this
know.
time wants to be playing a
doubt-
gay
right.
character, period, let alone someone who is dying of AIDS.
he was like entrusted with the role as like a steward of it. Like it was like,
Right.
we think that he will be responsible about this. you
And
know?
like he's not like an act. You know, I feel like some of the big stars of the era, like your Bruce Willis, I mean, they're more
Right.
action stars.
Right.
Maybe their agents would be like, "No, you can't buy.
Right.
What are you talking
Right,
about?"
but he was like comedies and
he's
dramas.
more of a comedy.
He's not going
rom-com,
to try to
right.
be an action guy. He's not even going to try to do like a Nick Cage pivot post Oscar.
No.
Now,
That takes another 15 years for him to throw back the hair and become Robert Langdon.
Denzel Washington,
Yeah.
right? He's a hot young actor.
Wins
Has
the
an
Oscar in
Oscar.
'89.
He's already but like before then, you know, he's like he was in Cry Freedom. He got an Oscar nomination. He was on St. Elsewhere for many years.
Yeah.
Then Glory, he gets his Oscar,
Mhm.
supporting Oscar.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's like here's the guy, right?
Yeah.
And then
Who did he beat that year for the Oscar? I'm just curious.
89, Danny Aiello,
let's get into it.
Dan Aykroyd,
I think you're right.
right? Because I'm
Yeah.
just thinking 89 is
Yeah.
Do the Right Thing and Drive Miss Daisy. So you have Aykroyd, Aiello, Washington. Are you looking at the list right now?
Mm-hmm.
Are the other two in Best Picture nominees?
One is like a legend. Maybe his last nomination.
Is it Alec Guinness?
No.
Okay.
Marlon Brando for A Dry White Season.
Yeah.
Or
I knew it was
those-
one of those
yeah.
two.
And then the other one is a incredible performance from a guy who'll win an Oscar in a couple years
Ben's nodding empathetically. Yeah.
in a comedy drama, New York. You know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about.
I mean, you know the director I'm talking about.
Oh, this is it Pesci? No, who is
I'm
it?
not talking Scorsese.
Yeah,
The other New York guy. We don't talk about him too much anymore.
yeah, I know, but now I'm trying to think what performance it is.
Such a good performance.
Uh,
Arguably this guy's best movie,
Really?
I would say.
Oh, it's Land Down Crimes and Misdemeanors. Yeah,
Yeah.
An incredible performance.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, everyone in that movie's good.
yeah. That's an incredible performance. And this was the run of Landau. Just kept on like he reestablished himself as an older actor, and he kept on getting those nominations.
What's
And-
up with the Aykroyd? Like, I've never seen Driving Miss Daisy. I have to
He
admit.
plays her son,
Right?
son?
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
He's not bad in the film. I think it was
It's a
more of a
weird-
sort of like,
I've never seen that either. Yeah,
I think it was sort of like well, you're in this big movie that we love.
right.
You've been around, so it's,
Sure.
here you go. Here's your nomination.
He was so big culturally. Like it's kind of
Yeah.
crazy to think about like because those SNL guys hit so fucking huge. And at that specific moment in 89, Bill Murray was essentially just coming out of his sabbatical. Chevy Chase had already started building a
He
bad
sort of crashed
reputation.
and burned, right,
and
yeah.
Belushi had died.
Yeah.
And those were the four guys that were like, one of these guys is going to be a major movie star.
It's kind of one of those classic, like, oh, you're the comedian in a serious movie. Like, look
Right.
at you.
and he does
Yeah.
like a respectable job. Like that. He's
I've seen
fine.
him. He's fine.
Like, had Albert Brooks got nominated for Drive,
yeah.
it would
But
have been
that's
that
even
kind of-
more of
yeah.
a like, wow, what a stretch, what a
Right.
range.
I've seen the film. In my memory, he mostly is just sort of like, my God, you're so annoying.
Yeah.
Right.
And she's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, I don't know.
Right, and then Morgan Freeman drives them around the South.
it's like, oh, I'll
and,
drive
and then
you
Jessica
somewhere,
Tandy
and-
folds a pizza in half. And
it. Knew it. Knew it was going to get to Green Book.
First SNL character, a cast member to get an Oscar nomination.
That sounds right, right?
I think there's 6 in total. I did this trivia once. But it's Murphy,
Right, Ellen
Murray,
Cleghorn,
Ellen
right?
Cleghorn,
oh.
I'm sorry. I just love saying her
Well,
name.
Victoria-
Melanie Hutzel.
Victoria Jackson is getting the Thalberg Prize this
She's
year, right?
the president.
Yeah,
Vika.
right.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
you know,
right.
Yeah.
No, but the Greenberg thing is kind of worth comparing.
Greenberg or Green Book?
Greenberg. I just stopped being able to speak
What if in
English.
Greenberg, Greta Gerwig had folded a big pizza?
Pizza's too big. I'm going to write a letter.
Greta
Your local
Gerwig
office.
Teaches Ben Stiller how to eat fried chicken.
Oh, boy.
I have to
Pool
fold.
overflow? That's my favorite line in Greenberg.
I think Greenberg's really good.
Greenberg rules.
Good movie.
Greenberg's great.
Yeah, really good movie.
I just love Can a Pool Overflow? And it's like, he's like, what? Yes! It's so funny.
That's such a good sweater movie.
Good sweater.
Ben Stiller's sweater collection in that film is so on point.
But then, anyway, I wanted to give you
Oh,
Denzel's
Denzel. I'll
early
get to the Green
90s,
Book stuff
post-glory.
later. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, do we need to talk Green Book?
I think we do, but we'll get to it later.
No.
Close it.
We're
Close
going to
that book.
open the book.
No, it's closed.
We're
It's
going to
closed.
open the book.
Close the pizza.
Okay, I'm putting it back
Although
on the
I
shelf.
do have a sketch that's, fuck, I don't even remember his name. Tony Lipsy's Philadelphia.
Of course.
I suppose that is probably cancelable. I would
Yeah.
say.
What's wrong with that guy?
Oh, no, actually, I forgot that Tony Lip is a woke king
Right, yeah.
about gayness.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, that's fine. I see it
He's
at the
like, hey, what are you
nightclubs all the
going to
time.
do? Go to
Yeah.
the Y. Fuck
Yeah.
a guy. I do it too. We all do it.
I drink out of a gay guy's glass. I don't care.
Yeah, because that's the scene. The deleted scene is she's like, why'd you throw these cups in the garbage? And he's like, well, because a black guy touched him. She was like, but they were gay. And he's like, oh, and he takes them out, and he pours water, and he's like, I love it.
You think I'm going to serve a black glass to a gay guy? I respect my gay brothers too much.
They're carefully labeled.
King.
Yeah.
All right, so in the 90s, a post-Oscar, it's sort of, I think it's partly like, well, here's Denzel. It's still incredibly rare for a black actor to have an Oscar. He might have been like the third or fourth black actor to get an Oscar.
Yeah,
it's very
win?
rare.
Yeah.
And so
Lou Gossett,
Sidney Poitier, Hattie, like there's only a few.
McDaniel,
Anyway, Mo Better Blues, which he's fantastic in, incredible
never seen
performance.
that. Yeah.
Early Spike Lee movie. You got Mississippi Masala, which is a nice.
Yeah.
But like these are not big movies.
No.
Is that Annabelle Shiora in that? No.
No, it's
That's Jungle Fever.
Yeah.
That she's in. Mississippi
It's
Masala is
what's her name? Sarita.
Sarita Choudhury.
Right.
You got Ricochet with John Lithgow and Ice-T.
That's a good
the
little
beginning
movie.
of his thrillers. I mean, that is kind of the thing that for me makes Denzel distinct. Is no matter how fucking rote and boilerplate the thriller is, he always feels like he's giving the exact same level of performance. You know, like when you see him in like the fucking Equalizer, you're like, this guy's not phoning it in.
No.
Like this movie is not worthy of this performance, and there's only so much shit he can stuff into like a bag.
Yeah.
But it never feels like there's a disconnect between the type of work and craft he's putting into a shitty thriller versus a real meaty drama.
Yeah, no, he has applies the same intensity. Like, what's that great little movie, Out of Time?
Yeah.
Great
With Eva
movie.
Mendes,
That's a
like,
great
Right, you're like, he's always giving you full intensity.
Oh, yeah.
He's even good in Fallen, which is a bad movie.
Fallen's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But Ricochet, yes, I guess Ricochet's the start
That's
of
an
Denzel
early,
holds a gun.
where he's like, let me just do an airplane thriller, essentially. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It also
Airport
is.
thriller.
It is interesting that he wins for supporting, but he is sort of such like an emotional crux of glory. And before that in his career, he had been like a TV lead, but more supporting in films.
TV supporting. He's supporting on St.
He was a supporting guy, but he was so fucking handsome and so charismatic that they were like, I guess this guy has to be a leading man now.
Right.
I think it's the Oscar that makes him a leading man. Before
That's what
then,
I'm
he's
saying.
also-
After the Oscar, then
Yeah,
they're
that's
like, we're
right,
not going
right,
to keep
right.
on bringing him in as
No,
like
that's what
the
I'm saying,
supporting
right?
player.
It's like, let's find him some roles. And then
Yeah.
those early roles are more indie movies. Ricochet is like a thriller. And then he does Malcolm X in 1992, which is a huge performance.
a big deal.
And it's much hyped, but he loses the Oscar. And of course, part of the reason he loses the Oscar is because he had just won an Oscar.
And it was Scent of a Woman?
It was Pacino that year.
Yeah.
Hua.
Exactly.
It's insane
that
that there
movie
was a
is-
movie called Scent of a Woman.
Well, it's about the scent of a woman makes you go,
Yeah.
"Whoa!"
It's crazy that was released in Smell-O-Vision. That's almost the most bizarre.
But you can only smell Pacino. That was the problem. He was like, I'll donate my scent to the film.
It was just stale cigars.
Do you think that when Pacino
That's the
was
only
watching
scent.
Batman Forever, he was like, that's the kid from the picture?
I know him. He's wearing a mask, but I can tell.
I can see past that little domino.
And then in 1993, and Malcolm X, I think, is just, even though it was maybe not the biggest hit of the year and not the biggest Oscar
But it
win
was
of
a
the year,
big
it was
hit.
a culturally significant film.
It was
huge,
it
much
performed
discussed
well,
film.
and people were like, "This performance
great
should win." I feel like the like obviously Pacino's overdue. Denzel just won, but this is a towering, historic performance.
And in 1993, he has The Pelican Brief, which we discussed, which is a big box office hit.
His first movie to make $100 million.
That sounds right.
With him as the lead. Yeah.
You have a supporting role in Much Ado About Nothing, which he is very handsome.
Oh my God.
Agreed.
That's a lovely movie.
He is such a fucking snack at this point in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Woo!
It's sort of insane.
I mean,
Look at
that
him.
was
Look at him over there.
they'd say body like Arnold,
Hello.
face like Denzel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, they
And-
were the two ideals.
100%. And then he has this film. And I do feel like this film is remembered as the Tom Hanks show, and Tom Hanks won the Oscar and all that.
He is
But
fucking
he is
unbelievable in this movie.
Incredible in the movie
Yeah.
and very important to its success, I would say.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and like,
Yeah.
it's, I think the movie functions better because you have a character like his and a performance like his.
Totally. And I think he's the lead of the film.
Sure.
I think it is a film that you could argue as two leads, but
Yeah, it's a
I would
two-hander.
place him in lead as a category thing.
They're both on the ballot for me this year.
Yeah.
They both made the 5, which is hard to do.
Denzel would be my pick over Hanks, though.
Neither wins for me.
Who wins for you this?
Neeson.
Neeson in
Schindler.
I forgot this was
That's
the
an
Schindler
unbeatable
year.
performance.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, like, so I do this thing at work where I recap Oscar ceremonies, like
which I
25 years
love.
ago, which is like backbreaking, horrible work, but like
we love to see
it pays off in the end. But anyway, watching the broadcast for the 1994 ceremony, so for this year's crop of movies.
Right.
It was just crazy, like, what a year that was for, like, important movies with important things to say.
It's a
and,
big year.
Like,
because it's
it was
also
just,
The Piano,
Yeah.
which is a great movie, but this is what she was the second woman nominated for an Oscar, right?
Yeah.
That year.
Yeah,
yes.
right.
For best director, to clarify.
Yes.
Yes.
And she won Best Screenplay as well. The 5 nominees for actor were Hanks, Daniel Day-Lewis for In the Name of the Father,
Wow.
Anthony Hopkins for The Remains of the Day, Lawrence Fishburne for What's Love Got to Do with It, which is an incredible performance,
Yeah.
and Neeson for Schindler's List.
Yeah.
And all of those performances, save maybe Daniel Day-Lewis, are performances that removed of the other winners.
Would have won.
You know, well, you just sort of say like, well, then he was Larry was nominated for What's Love Got to Do with It, and you'd be like, oh, how didn't he win? What the hell?
Yeah,
Like,
and then
you're
you
like,
look at
oh,
who else
right.
is there.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Anyway.
that's where they are in their careers.
Yeah.
I feel like they are both big stars.
Yes.
But
And they could both carry the weight of the responsibility of this movie. People trusted them.
Yeah.
They're smart actors. They're populist actors. So they kind of
Yeah.
have all that going for them. If they had cast Day-Lewis or something, it
Right.
probably would have been more alienating, you know?
That's
you have
true.
to cast
That's
Tom
true.
Hanks in it. You have to cast.
It helps that these are two guys who were not doing films like this, that this felt like an unfamiliar, you know? To play, like, to a certain degree, there's a weird, like, slickness that is also kind of cheap to Denzel in this, that is so different from what he had played up until this point.
Sure.
And Hanks is adding, like, a basement onto what people thought he could do, a basement and attic onto the structure that people believed he was capable of at this point in time. But talking about how risky it was for them to do, like, not to overstate this, but Denzel goes on a radio show when he is filming Philadelphia or about to start filming to promote something else. And they ask him, what are you working on? He said, I'm about to make a film, an AIDS drama. And they got, like,
They get hostile.
phone calls for the next hour. People, how can he do that? That's disgusting.
No, it's crazy.
Why is he ruining his career?
And Joanna was like, oh, that's not, like, it is weird. Yes, it's crazy.
To play the lawyer in a film about AIDS, people were like, this is despicable. I'll never go see one of his films again. I mean, it helps that Denzel's character is the sort of the kind of casual bigotry. I mean, this is where I want to open the book briefly, okay?
Go on.
I feel like very often films about prejudice and bigotry paint with such a broad brush where the intolerant people are so cut and dry, fucking horrific and evil.
Sure.
That, and this is the thing everyone talked about with Green Book, it lets people off the hook. Because almost anyone can watch it and go, well, I'm not like that.
Right.
I just have my rational small phobias.
Right.
I'm not
Sure.
that awful. I wouldn't throw out the glass or whatever. And then they also come around to a greater sense of cleaner redemption where they are completely solved and absolved.
Right.
You know, and cry and say, I love you. I can't believe how wrong I was. And this is a film in which the guy kind of takes the case for a very complex series of reasons.
Yeah.
One is that his love of the law is such that he recognizes there is a pretty good case here.
Right.
Another is that even though he has discriminated against this guy, when he sees this guy being discriminated against from a slight remove,
Right. He's sort of.
as a black man for the first time, he feels the anger watching it happen outside of him.
It's demi magic.
But
When
he
you're
also
watching just
ugh.
him watch someone,
Right.
and watch him, and I love that.
But he also then doesn't immediately go, I understand it, I love you.
No,
You understand at that point that he realizes that he should do it, even though he feels uncomfortable with it. And the small victory of the film is, like, not to jump ahead, but him just putting the mask on Tom Hanks. The mere fact that, like, at the end of the film he's touching him. I mean, it's another fucking incredible demi scene. I guess we should sort of go through.
Yeah, let's go through the movie. Yeah.
So you open with the streets of Philadelphia. David?
Yep.
I got a very pleasant package in the mail yesterday.
Yeah, a box?
But you know what's inside that box?
Food?
But
What?
they are in a couple bags.
That's true.
Because today's episode is sponsored by HelloFresh. And here's what I like about HelloFresh, and here's what's different about
It's
them.
America's #1 meal kit.
They come in little paper bags.
They do. It's like you went to the grocery store.
You can feel like a member of the Sack Lunch Bunch.
Yeah.
Right?
God, that was so good, wasn't
It's
it?
perfect.
So fucking
A perfect thing.
So good.
A perfect special. And HelloFresh is like the Sack Lunch Bunch of meal delivery kit
You're
services.
right. They've got 22 plus
Yeah.
seasonal chef curated recipes each week.
But what's important is they come in little rolled up paper bags.
That's right.
And the bags have stickers on them that tell you what they are. And it almost feels like your mom has prepared this meal kit delivery service. You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
It's got personal touch. It's not some hermetically sealed, airtight vacuum package.
Right.
It's a little paper bag.
And it cuts out stressful meal planning and prepping, so you can enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table in just about 30 minutes, or even 20 minutes if you go for the quick recipe options.
And you get a bunch of free paper bags that you can then use to put other things in.
They've got well, you know what? They shipped the box to me before I moved. It came to my house like the day before I moved.
Oh boy!
And when you're moving, packing up your house, any box will do. You start just being like, we need to throw. Yeah. So the HelloFresh box got moved to my new house.
Yeah.
Like I took the groceries out, put them in the fridge, and then the box, I put a bunch of books in it.
I like this. I like every part of the box is recyclable. Some of these meal kits delivery services, they have weird
have
technology,
so much packaging,
some
and
goo.
but no, it's really easy to recycle it.
And even the ice packs.
Yes, they're really
They say
easy.
like cut here.
Yeah, they have
pull
instructions.
the ice out, recycle.
Yep. You can add extra meals or lunches to your weekly order, or you can throw in yummy sides and desserts like garlic bread or cookie dough.
Which sounds delicious.
And you can change your delivery days and preferences and skip a week if you need.
And the more meals you add, the more paper bags you're going to end up with. You can make your own little paper bag players touring company.
That's right.
And you'll have enough food to feed your whole ensemble cast.
That's all true. Now, if you can go to HelloFresh.com.
I can do that.
/10check.
I can definitely do that.
And use the code 10check.
10 check.
During HelloFresh's New Year's sale, you can get 10 free meals, including free shipping.
10 free meals. 10.
So go to
That's
HelloFresh.
so many.
Go to HelloFresh.com /10check and use code 10check to get 10 free meals, including free shipping.
Double digits.
That's HelloFresh.com /10check. That's 10 check.
10 check.
Code 10check. 10 check.
Get yourself some bags.
10 meals.
10 bags.
I forgot that you open with a good chunk on Hanks in the firm without.
Where everyone loves him. He's like the golden boy.
Everyone likes him. He's doing well.
Well, the immediate open, which is so great, is Denzel and Hanks
him arguing some sort of petty, street zoning.
And they're talking over each other. Right.
Yeah, I read some criticism. Maybe it was a Larry Kramer piece or something else where the people were like, why would he go to this ambulance chasing lawyer? He's like at a high powered firm. He would surely know someone. It's like, well, but I think that's why they have that opening scene is probably like we don't see what Denzel did exactly in court, but clearly he did something to impress.
Yeah.
Hanks is sort of like, oh, this guy's
good.
going for it. Because Denzel gives this like pretty eloquent defense in what's clearly kind of like a, cheap shit case.
Yeah.
And so I think Hanks is like, whatever, clocks that. But then also it's clear that Hanks is suing a law firm. So white shoe law firms are not going to go with that.
Right.
That would set a terrible precedent for them.
Anyone within the old boys club is going to be off limits.
Exactly.
There's going to be that weird tribalism.
And he says, I went to many lawyers. Like, there's an obvious... and, like, that scene where he approaches Denzel Denzel has just talked to the other guy who like is some moron who walked into an open manhole.
Yes.
And is like,
no, you got
the city owes me money. And Denzel's like, yep, you do. Yeah. We'll sue the city. Take it up with the lady.
It's beautiful writing where he's like, so you're saying that you chose, even though you had any number of trajectories to walk through, to walk into that space without looking, even though it was clearly marked, and you fell down and you want to sue the city for injuries. He's like, yeah, do I have a case? He's like, oh, you definitely have a case.
Yeah.
But it helps, like, right, that's such an important distinction that it's not just, oh, he's the guy who Tom Hanks has seen on the ads on TV. Yeah. It's that he's also seen the guy in action firsthand. Mm-hmm. And you sense that he has a respect lawyer to lawyer of like, I don't do it like this. I'm from a very different world than him in terms of the cases we're taking and the sides we're taking. But I can see that guy has the goods where if he's been rejected by 9 guys and needs to start thinking off the beaten path, he would go, what about Denzel?
Because then there's that scene later when the fancy lawyers see Denzel and they're like, it's the TV guy. Like they also vaguely know him. They're like, the TV guy. Well, okay. But yes, we see Hanks at work. I just like that it is not linear, that it's not like the movie opens with like a doctor being like, and the thing that you have is called AIDS, and here's what the symptoms are, and here's what's going to happen to you. He basically has it already.
The movie starts and he's covering up AIDS.
He's covering it up. He's going to the doctor, and that could be the scene where the doctor is telling him everything, but no, it's just sort of like peppered in there. And then there's that incredible scene where he calls his mom, played by Joanne Woodward, and she's like, "How are you?" And he's like, "My blood work's fine. I'm doing fine." And you cut back to her, and she kind of just like cringes and almost cries.
She
on
starts
the
like
phone.
silently crying and then pulls herself back together.
I mean, that's the kind of shit
Yeah.
that Jonathan Demme
Yeah.
is bringing to the table at Benihana. Okay, that's
Yes,
him
he's
flipping the thing into.
He's making the
volcano.
onion volcano.
Tori Spelling's falling into it.
Yes.
Like, and there's a couple other things in this movie that I just noticed as I was watching it, where I was like, this is just not something that would automatically be in a movie like this, or it's something that a studio or whoever might just be like, oh, like we can lose this.
Well, also, like, they could have mined obvious, easy drama out of his family hates him, he's isolated,
All
blah, blah,
that.
blah, blah.
Which-
Instead,
all
he's
those
like, no,
tropes.
it's a loving family who's
Yes.
supportive and maybe a little bit, like, square and conservative about, like,
Yeah.
but, like, for the most part, but, like, they're decent people and,
Nice Warner did this really good interview with BuzzFeed like a year ago. For
with
the 25th
Adam Berry.
anniversary
Yeah,
of this.
yeah, I
Yes.
read that. Yeah.
Which is really good. And he said in it, like, it was a thing we debated about for a long time. And we decided we don't need to do every element of potential conflict.
Yeah.
We want to streamline what this movie actually is. And also, we thought it was more interesting because you always saw that. You always saw the family refusing to accept the anger, the crying, all of that. That you could start a movie at a point by showing that the family is pretty square.
Yeah.
And pretty, seemingly kind of conservative in their temperament at the very least, with the assumption that happened at some point in the past, and this is years later, and they've worked to a place of understanding.
Yeah.
And it is so much more sort of like fulfilling, emotionally, to watch the movie and to feel that sense of history of like, it probably wasn't always this clean, and the way the dad, like in this very kind of like clenched way sort of says like, you have dealt with this entire situation with a level of grace that I cannot even comprehend. So I feel like I'm in no position to tell you what to do now. It's just like devastating.
Yeah.
Because it's like a man trying really hard to show that even though he doesn't really understand his son, he loves him so deeply and like has so much respect for him because
That
he doesn't
guy's
understand.
good.
That guy's
guy's really
fucking
good face.
Good.
Yeah.
Just a good dad. Like
But
looks like
that's-
a dad.
it's the Demi thing that would come up sometimes where it like comes up with Rachel getting married, where they're like, who has a wedding like this? Who's like this accepting of other cultures and all this stuff? And it's this thing that I think it was Pauline Kael said in the Melvin Howard review, or maybe it was Janet Maslin. She said it's an act of sympathetic imagination, which I think is such a good term for him, where it's like, A, you can sell that. You can sell that the family accepts him.
Yeah.
And B, it is the more interesting thing to do for the sake of the movie. To try to present a world in which there are a lot of hardships. This movie is about people overcoming great difficulty.
But it's not about the most oppressed and sick and desperate
Why does
person in the world.
everything have to be
And the most,
right?
let's reopen the book. Okay, Tony Lip saw this movie. Of course, he's a woke king.
Yeah.
But no, where it's like Don Shirley is a fucking genius who's the greatest person who ever
Right.
lived at
Yeah.
his thing.
And every person he comes up against treats him like the biggest piece of shit in the world. You
Right,
know.
yeah.
I think all of that is so fucking smart. The stuff with the family is so good. And the fact, the time jumps in the movie are a thing I completely forgot. Because it keeps on taking these big jumps of like, you see Hanks being brought in with all the sort of old guys, including what a good use of Roger Corman as an actor. Like weird old square Roger Corman.
100%.
But all these guys, them noticing the lesion.
Yeah.
Which I think is then the first time you go into the Demi sort of POV camera.
So much good close-up action in this
It's so
movie.
much. There's so much. It's
I
fascinating.
mean, it's his guy. It's his move.
It
Sorry.
is
He
crazy
loves the close-up.
how versatile that move is, though.
Especially, this is coming off of The Silence of the Lambs,
Yeah.
which uses close-ups in a very involving and
Right.
scary and tense way.
But in this one, he'll oscillate where like you use it sometimes in the courtroom, so it feels like Denzel when he makes his opening remarks to the jury and he's delivering it straight to you. You're feeling the intensity of what if you were the person who was eventually going to be tasked with coming up with the ruling on this case, and he's selling it to you.
Yeah.
So you feel that kind of pressure. Sometimes it's used in intimidation. Sometimes it's used between Banderas and Hanks for intimacy, and it's all such
Definitely,
subtle
right.
shifting of where the camera is in relation to the guys, what kind of angle they're at. Also, whether they're both looking directly in the lens, if one of the two characters in the conversation is looking slightly to the left. Very often, Denzel is the person who is looking at the camera.
Denzel does.
Hanks is a little off.
Incredible face stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and this movie is really part of its meaning is just like these are people. These are people. Look at them. They are people. Right. And I think that's mirrored at the end, where the closing shot is the video or the home film of him as a little kid. And I think it's reminding of a common humanity and everything like that. So like it's both interesting to look at the close-ups, but they also serve a sort of like thematic purpose. In a
you
really
have to stare these people in the eyes.
Yeah.
Like it is hard to demonize people if you really take the time to look in the eyes and hear what they have to say, which is what this movie's about.
Which has been the story, I feel like, of so much of the advancement of gay rights in this country. Right? It's sort of like the more that people realize that these are not aliens that are being banished to dark corners of society.
I mean, I was thinking about this watching the movie, that, you know, obviously with regard to like racial equality and all that, like Hollywood has been part of that narrative, but by no means the driving factor of it. Whereas with the LGBT stuff,
didn't see Green Book.
Like, if only. But with LGBT stuff, I really do feel like Hollywood was leading that that charge in like a huge way. And you watch a movie like Phil, and yes, maybe there are problems with Philadelphia or whatever. Like, and I don't mean to dismiss people's issues with the movie, but like it was fucking doing something, and
totally
in a time when very few people were.
And also, it is just one story. Yeah. Like it had a very specific sort of cultural goal, which is to like make a movie that forces people to reckon with AIDS victims as human beings. Right. But it is not trying to be a definitive text about the crisis.
I just want to clarify for the audience, none of what they're saying is true. This is a film about Bruce Springsteen's visions of the streets of Philadelphia.
Yes.
And these are all things that he saw on the streets of Philadelphia, and it sort of forms a somewhat coherent narrative. But I mean, as you could tell,
by chance.
Every shot in the film is told from his point of view, from a street of Philadelphia. Yeah. You can tell that it's very visually clear.
Yeah. They were having a court trial.
Every
on the
courtroom.
Street. Actually, if it's like a little Easter egg. Yeah.
But the jump of like him in the court, not in the courtroom, in the sort of the back offices, smoking cigars, being told that he's being made an associate or whatever.
Well, they kind of give him the weird sort of like mind test where they're like, so what do you prefer? The obvious answer or the answer, we don't like that one? He's like, I don't like. And they're like, well done. Yes. Brand him.
And as we said, there is something unnatural that hangs from this moment. He's skinnier than you've ever seen him in a movie up until this point. He's caked in makeup in a way the other guys aren't. Even the way his hair is made up is kind of weird. And you realize, it's because he's covering up. This is not a movie that's going to have
that moment with
a surprise diagnosis 15 minutes in. You have the moment, which is the first time you go to the demi POV, and then the movie like jumps to a week later.
If not more, it takes the jump to him in the hospital, getting his blood work, right? And they're looking for the paper.
Oh, you're right. I'm
the
sorry.
Briefs.
Yes.
And so you have all that unfold, and then you basically jump to him coming to Denzel's office.
Right. There's a gap there, which is you see them, Bradley Whitford starting to tear his hair out.
You don't see him get fired. Is the thing.
No, huge.
You see it after the fact in flashback.
Right,
you see
he goes to Denzel's office. He's like, I've been let go.
And he looks suddenly like he's lost his hair. He looks very pale. He looks different.
Right. And Denzel says, man, what happened to your face? And he says, I have AIDS. And it's this incredible moment of...
They're shaking hands when he says it. And Denzel sort of like holds the hand for a second and goes like,
The entire temperature of the scene changes. Denzel, clearly as a man who prides himself on being a professional, is not going to chase this guy out of his office.
No,
but
he just becomes prickly.
Is immediately terrified also. I mean, he's
Tom
actually
Hanks is
at
asking
fear
him
for
about
his
his
life.
Daughter, and Denzel's like kind of itchy about that.
Well,
he
but then
picks up a cigar.
You move to like Denzel's POV, which is all sort of like shaky, wandering cam around the desk, looking at everything that Hanks is touching or breathing on.
He's touching Bruce Springsteen.
Right.
Who's standing in the corner.
What's going on in this office?
Right, but it becomes this sort of pressure cooker.
Had a baby girl.
This pressure cooker scene of just like Denzel, wrongly, we know, immediately feels like he is at risk.
Yes.
Like this might be the meeting that kills him.
Sure.
Just even by humoring this man for 15
daughter
minutes.
thing.
He clearly had not seen the Captain Planet episode about AIDS, which
I know.
Seared in my brain.
Needs to be watching the planet.
Even though Bruce Springsteen has it on the TV that he's holding under his arm. Playing on a constant
He
loop.
went to Philadelphia to go to a screening of the Captain Planet episode.
Hard fire wind.
Then occasionally Neil Young will cross paths with Bruce singing his own song, but only occasionally.
I also like Captain Planet. My Neil Young's too much like my Willie Nelson. I got to differentiate.
But no one sounds like Neil Young, though.
No.
You know that Willie Nelson joke?
Which one?
What's the worst thing that Willie Nelson can say to you during sex? I'm not Willie Nelson.
It's a good joke.
Yeah.
This is totally lateral, but you know what's one of my favorite jokes of all time?
I don't know.
My dad told me this, but it's like the joke about like the shitty club promoter in Vegas. And he's like, we got huge stars tonight, incredible lineup. Sinatra's playing. And the guy goes, Frank Sinatra? He goes, no, not Frank Sinatra, Dan Sinatra, but it's Sinatra playing, of course. And Davis Jr., we got Davis Jr. And they go, Sammy Davis Jr.? They go, no, it's Ted Davis Jr., but it's, you know. And we got Goulet. Goulet's playing. They go, Robert Goulet? And he goes, yes.
Vera said that?
I just love that joke.
That's a good joke.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
You know what's a crazy thing about Captain Planet? Because it was like Ted Turner and so much money behind it, and it was such a like, this is like a fucking cause. Like season 1, all the villains of the week are played by giant movie stars.
Yeah.
And then as the show continues, they all just are like, oh, I'm not going to do multiple
Like
episodes.
Meg Ryan.
And Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
It's all like crazy big people.
I mean, Whoopi Goldberg stayed on as Gaia for the whole run, didn't she?
yeah, I think she did, right? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Don't look at me.
But most of them like would establish a
No,
character.
Whoopi Goldberg did Gaia for 2 years and then handed it off to Margot Kidder. Who
Naturally.
is basically like the B-list Whoopi Goldberg.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Heart, though. Heart.
Well, yeah.
Come on.
That's the Fifth Element.
No, it's not.
It is. Oh, well, I mean, love, but
Mila Jovovich, technically.
Yeah.
He was coded as kind of gay, too, that character. Mati. I believe
Mati,
his name was.
yeah. Yeah.
He
My
has
heart
the power
belonged to
of heart.
Wheeler, though.
Wheeler was fire, I
Yeah.
believe. Yes.
Yeah.
So Denzel turns him down,
Uh-huh.
goes to his doctor. His doctor's like a nice old guy who's like, are you obliquely asking me for a blood test? Like, is that what this
But
is?
there's
Like,
also so much complication.
surely you're not such a moron that you think you got AIDS from a handshake. So do you have AIDS? And
Right.
this is your way of telling me, like,
He's
you're
like, I don't
worried?
judge your like lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, I've known you since you were a child.
Yeah.
But also in that Hanks Denzel interview scene, you know, Denzel's trying to find an out. And Hanks is explaining, because he knows
Right, and-
his fucking law shit so well, how he knows it's a case, how here are the elements, here are the precedent, this and that. And Denzel's like, well, I wouldn't take it. And he's like, no, because you think I wouldn't win. And he's like, no, it's not that. And it was like, it's because.
Right.
Hanks just
he
straight
says, like, I
face
have a
says-
problem with it. Yeah.
Right. Do you have a problem?
Right. Yeah.
Yes, I do.
But good luck. And then he does that sort of half-hearted, like, hey, man, I'm sorry. It's a tough break. Like, he sort of tries to, like, throw him some sympathy on the way out.
Well, it's almost the fact that Hanks doesn't respond to him with anger makes him feel bad. He is so confident in saying, I have a problem with the way you live your life, until Hanks just sort of goes like, okay. And then it's like, fuck.
Yeah.
This
Right. How am I
guy's not an
supposed to-
asshole. Yeah.
And then I guess after it's the library is pretty much the next big scene. is
Right.
after
Bob the
the
Goon tries to tell Hanks to use a private room.
Right.
And once again, all these amazing demi close-ups of all the other people sitting in the library watching it.
It's
trying to
just
make like
terrific.
And there's maybe I'm reading too much into it, but there's a skinny young guy sitting right nearby who kind of gets up because he's disgusted or whatever. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
But he kind of reads a little gay too,
Yes.
so
Yes.
I think it's a little bit about like internal,
weird
like
self.
yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
be too close to this right
Well,
now.
it's
'cause
also
gonna,
this thing of like, AIDS is fucking scary.
Yeah.
Like when you watch AIDS documentaries, it really is just terrifying how much it ravaged the body. So aside from obviously,
Also, just like that, its rep was like, we have no way of treating it.
Right.
We have experimental drugs that are just sort of beginning to maybe mitigate it,
Yeah.
but like they do horrible damage.
Yeah,
to you.
those early cocktails were really
It's
rough.
basically going to
Yeah.
just be like a miserable life.
but also removed from the sort of homophobia of the sort of fear of AIDS. It also just was a terrifying disease that turned people into zombies.
Right.
Like it is upsetting to look at when you watch like AIDS quilt documentaries and stuff.
Yeah.
People who are at the last moments of their life. They really look ghoulish, you know? And so it's such a visual disease on top of everything else. And the earmarks of it were so clear and so specific to it that you understand that sense of just like, it in the same way that it's unnerving to visit a hospital, you know, and to see people who are that close to death. There's that element too, which also then just like, right, there's the internalized like fear of it even within the gay community, but then also for people who are prejudiced, it just gives them ammunition.
Right.
To be like, well, look at how, what am I supposed to hang out with this guy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The Magic, I should note, the Magic Johnson thing had happened 2 years earlier. And that is also a sort of crazy landmark moment for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like a straight guy has AIDS and he's an athlete.
Yeah.
And he's coming out and he's saying, like, I want to be clear that, like, I got this through having way too much heterosexual sex.
Right.
Like, that it is not just some gay plague. Like, I basically slept with any woman that was near me because I was the most famous basketball player. You know, like that. That had also been a weird sort of shockwavy moment in recent history.
Yeah.
Was that early?
That's
91.
crazy. Yeah.
91.
Wow.
I mean, the Magic Johnson thing to this day is completely crazy.
Yeah.
Like, just to think about it to this day, like that happened.
Yeah.
So early in the sort of life cycle of AIDS in American consciousness, and that he's still with us, and
That
that
his
like,
health never visibly diminished.
not really,
Yeah.
and like that he returned to basketball, which no one remembers,
Right.
and that players were too prejudiced to basically play with him, like
Right.
in '94 when he
People
went
didn't
back
want to share a locker room with
all
him.
that,
I mean,
and
right,
they were
there's-
afraid, like, what if he
Right.
bleeds and he like gets on?
Yeah.
There was all that sort of like, just crazy.
So Denzel makes the move, you know? I mean, I also love, it's such a nice little touch, but he sees him sitting there and coughing. You immediately see him kind of recoil, like, disgusting. How dare he does this? And then when Bob the Goon walks over, Denzel shifts over his stack of books so that he can keep watching out of morbid curiosity
like
without
hide.
being
Yeah.
noticed.
Well, right, even before that, there's a white guy staring at him.
Yes,
Right.
Yes.
The skinny
And
guy.
I
right.
feel like that's like really important visual.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. The guy. Oh, you mean the guy? Yeah, the guy who walks by,
And
just
kinda
looking at him, and then
staring
walks
at him.
past.
Demi was just so fucking good
Yeah, man.
at conveying complex interpersonal dynamics in looks, in moments, in nonverbal physical language.
Now Denzel works with Demi again, just to point that out, right? Like he works with
Manchurian.
him in
Yeah.
Manchurian Candidate. Did Hanks never work with him again?
No, but then Gary Goetzman, who was one of Demi's guys, who was in all of his movies and was a producer,
Becomes-
Hanks plucks him after
Becomes
this
Hanks'
and
producing
becomes his
partner,
playtime
right?
partner.
Yeah, 100%. Anyway, just interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we kind of get into the latter half of the film, which is like more just like courtroom drama.
It's another beautiful shift, which is just Denzel comes over and goes like, no, he's with me.
Yeah.
And then they're just on the case. You don't have all the shoe leather of them preparing for the case. You don't have too much ramp up to the courtroom. You have him going to his family and telling them like, you know.
I'm going to do this and it's going to be tough. Yeah.
Right.
And you have Banderas being introduced sort of as this like loving partner.
Yeah.
Um,
And one of the sexiest
just the most handsome
human
man who ever lived.
beings.
It's funny in the Larry Kramer thing. He's like, and this actor, I don't know, with dark hair, like he did, like, and it's just like, well, because no one knew who Antonio Banderas was.
Right.
Because I think he barely spoke English at that.
He barely
point.
spoke
Yeah.
English at the time, although
Yeah.
he had done, I believe, he'd done what's it called? Mambo Kings.
Right.
Which
Right.
he said was an entirely phonetic performance. He
Yeah.
did not speak English at all. At this point, I think he's just beginning to learn English. But I mean, like, Larry Kramer, fucking watch your Almodovar movies. Go to the art house, buddy.
Right.
Yeah.
Go see a
This
Law of
guy was
Desire
in
or
Law of
whatever.
Desire
Yeah.
and Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down and shit. Like, come on.
Right.
He's in Women on a Verge of a Nervous
Yeah.
Breakdown. He's
And he's also, Hollywood is priming him to be a guy. Like he
It
does like 3 or 4
is.
movies right like in quick succession.
Well, in 94 you have Interview with the Vampire, which
Right.
is another supporting role, and then in 95 is when he's everywhere.
That's
That's Desperado,
Right.
Miami Rhapsody, Assassins, Too Much, like where it's just suddenly like,
Assassins was that same year.
yeah,
That's crazy.
and that's the one that is the GIF.
yes, the internet.
But Femme Fatale also has a GIF of him looking at a laptop and going, which is
It's his
crazy.
move. It's his
And they did
signature.
it twice.
Yeah. It's his John Hancock.
But by the time this episode drops, he could be an Oscar nominee.
I really hope to God he is.
Yeah.
And I worry he won't be because it's a really stacked
It
year
is
and it's a very
weird
quiet performance.
How tough
Yeah.
Best Actor is this year
But,
because it's been such a bleak
he's-
category in recent memory.
He's my winner, and I think it's just like an astonishing performance.
Yeah.
Even by his
I was trying to
straight
figure out who I'm going
standards.
to vote for New York Film Critics Circle.
This guy, I know, Antonio Bender.
But I just feel like there's no way we're walking out of that room without Adam Driver
I
having
agree.
won it.
But we don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well,
At
we'll
this
know
point,
when this
you'll
airs.
know.
Yep.
We will. That's true. That's
Amazing.
absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Adam Driver does seem like, I mean, Sandler, I guess also will. I could vote for him.
I haven't seen that yet.
He's
Yeah.
also incredible.
I feel like I need to take a Xanax before it or something. Like, just it sounds stressful.
It's undeniably stressful.
Do,
I can't really
do you want to
get
hear
around that.
the least surprising thing in the world?
Mm-hmm.
My father is so fucking amped for Uncut Gems.
I think your father's in Uncut
I
Gems.
think my father.
It's about him.
Yes, it was pulled from his brain Inception style. Just for kicks, because we're recording this so far in advance and all the stuff will be settled by the time it comes out. Do either of you have like big things you want to push uphill that you're already thinking at this point? Like, this is the one I really want to champion.
I want
when
to make
get
J-Lo
those
happen.
rooms.
J-Lo is the one that I think we can make happen.
Yeah.
And we'll see.
Yeah.
My actress this year is Jessie Buckley, who I can't.
Oh, that's
make happen,
interesting.
But it is a great performance.
But is a great performance. But that's more of one of those things where I'm like, I know that will not
Right.
like be a winner at a critics award. Like, it's not a widely enough seen film. Or
Do you know who
whatever.
my best supporting actress winner is as of this moment? Sofia Canedo.
Okay.
Oh, in Wild
In
Rose?
Wild Rose.
Oh, interesting.
good.
I
Yeah,
think she's
good.
insanely good.
I
in
think
that
it's a great movie.
Yeah,
I
that
love
movie rules.
She
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah.
I think she's crazy good. in it.
I watched that on a plane, and then I immediately watched yesterday right after, and I was like, well, that was the wrong order because like,
Really
Yeah.
is the wrong order. Oh boy, you're totally right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other, and Portrait of a Lady on Fire is my other, like,
Ugh. Yeah.
movie
Yeah.
to champion this year that I also think will end up being. I mean, my look on the record. I think Parasite will be the dominating force at our Critics Awards and at most critic awards, and I think that's fine. I love that movie.
But yes, you go to the courtroom almost immediately. I like that this film is so interested in the courtroom, you know, and sort of the theater of the courtroom. I think this film gets that really well. It is not a Just Mercy that is about like honesty and truth winning.
Right.
That's so much of Denzel's value in this movie is that he's such a good manipulator.
Yeah.
Of language and perception.
Right.
And the fact that you're watching him do that even when you know that he doesn't necessarily agree with everything he's saying, that part of it is just the rush of being that fucking good as a lawyer.
Right.
I love the device of explaining it to me like I'm a 6-year-old.
Yes.
And he keeps hitting that, and it's
Totally.
just so effective that even they call it back
They
in the jury
call it out,
room.
but at the same time, it's clearly like it sticks in your head.
Yeah.
And
right?
his other incredible boss move is just the, well, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, like
Where
the
he
sort of like,
runs at it. He's
what's
like,
the subtext
let's
here?
expose the nerve. Right.
Right. That there are multiple times where he asks someone on the stand if they're gay.
Right.
You know, I mean, brings in their personal life in that kind of way.
Robards is good in this movie, by the way. We
Yeah.
haven't brought
Really
him up yet.
Yeah.
I mean, he rules.
He's like the way that he keeps laughing sort of it's not exactly derisively, but they're in the trial, like, you know, and there's kind of this weird, like sometimes he laughs at something that Denzel said, or
Yeah.
like there's everyone's just treating it kind of like, well, whatever, you know, we're here, like, and I think that helps. I don't know, weirdly drive home the intensity of what Tom Hanks is experiencing, because everyone around him is just sort of taking it as like a sort of, it's like an interesting case, like, you know,
Right. And
you know,
there's this arrogance of like, come on, everyone's going to agree with us.
Right.
Like, who wouldn't fire a guy with AIDS?
Right, exactly.
Like, they are
Yeah.
so confident in their position
Yeah.
where they're like, even if he has some legal basis for what he's talking about, no one is going to instinctually think
Right.
we were wrong.
Right.
And so he just sits back with that sort of air and laughing at the theater of all of it and like, let's get it over with. That scene we forgot to mention where Denzel serves them with the court papers were there in the sky.
That's the
Dr.
scene where
J?
they're like, oh, it's the TV guy. Right.
Yeah.
and he
Dr.
gives
J.
Dr. J's card.
But
Yeah.
also when he goes to the hospital, when his wife's in labor and the guy in the hallway says, you're the TV guy, he takes out his pen and gives it to him. Like that he loves the sort of like celebrity of the type of
Well,
lawyer
also,
he is.
I think to Denzel's character too. What's his name? Joe Miller. He's like,
Yeah.
you saw the ad.
Right,
Like, you know,
it
I think
worked.
there is a little bit of that where he's like,
Yeah.
that's right, I'm the TV guy.
Fucking
Yeah,
worked.
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then in the courtroom scenes, like having Mary Steenburgen, who
I mean,
is
an
a demi
incredible
regular, like
move.
she's
Yes.
yeah. It reminded me of, I forget her name, the woman that they had do the Kavanaugh questioning
Oh,
Christine
yes,
Blasey,
yes.
Yeah, right,
where
right.
so- and all you just saw like the old white men sitting behind her, kind of
Yeah.
being like, "Well, we're
You
buffer
take
zone,"
this.
you know.
Yeah.
That feels
Yeah.
very much like the Steenburgen
There's,
thing. Yeah.
there's that just again a another great moment that movies often wouldn't include, the thing where she just sits down after the worst thing, the mirror trick.
I hate this case.
Where she's right, I hate this.
And I read
and not in a way where you're like, oh, how sympathetic, but you can just like, this is not what.
That's the thing, and a lot of the negative reviews from the gay community in the '90s said that they felt like that moment was an easy out to show, oh, look, she's not a bad person. I think that's not what he's doing at all.
Opposite.
I think he's showing the hypocrisy.
It would be a way easier out if she was just a prejudiced bigot.
And it is more villainous.
Because then you're like, great, she's a villain. I got it. Yeah, bad person.
Right. It is more villainous that she is willing to sell her integrity. It's one of the interesting dynamics of this film is that Denzel is fighting on the right side of history that he doesn't really believe in.
But he is a bigot, and he's cruel at times. He says awful shit to his wife about it.
Right.
And to the guy in the store.
And to the guy, and there's the scene with the guy in the store.
That scene is so good, too.
That's very charged and is dealing with, the perception of this in the black community that was very different from.
And when he's at the bar and they do the news coverage and they go like, so what, Joe, you getting a little light in your loafers?
All that stuff.
Right. And he transitions from you think the movie is taking an easy out of, oh, he has already been transformed by Tom Hanks because he starts going like, yeah, I'm a homosexual. I go to the clubs. Like he's doing the joke and going like, and in fact, you're my type of guy. Right. And you're like, that's the bit he's going to do. He's going to turn the prejudice on them. And then he stops doing the bit and goes like, I hate them. I find them disgusting.
Right.
It's my job.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like he's saying that to try to get them off of his back. It's truly like he feels the weight of like, I kind of hate that I'm being associated with this case.
And people criticize that vacillation. They're like, well, it's almost like they shot two different movies because he's like supporting this cause in the courtroom. And then, outside he's like assaulting basically a man who hits on him at a drugstore. And you're like, but because those two things can occupy the same head.
People don't change that quickly. Yeah. People are weird and nuanced and fucked up and contradictory. Yeah. And also Mary Steenburgen is the shadow of him. I mean, there's something to the fact that Denzel is so powerful, right? But is also in this performance very slick and kind of prickly, Yeah. That he is sort of aggressive in the way and mocking in the way that he questions people in the courtroom, know?
Sure.
Or does this sort of like treat me like I'm a 6-year-old thing. And Mary Steenburgen is the exact opposite where it feels like there's no theatrics. She is so folksy. As an actress, she is so genuine.
Fact.
And she is very earnestly and very sort of quietly saying all this really gross prejudice stuff, but making it sound like it's just a natural, obvious thing. Mm-hmm. And that one moment of her saying, I hate this case is going like, they're both mostly praying to the altar of their job and the salary.
Right.
The ego of being a good lawyer and who you work for and how much you can get in the settlement, all of that is in both cases overriding their actual moral compass.
Yeah, and Denzel Washington is a black lawyer who has to ambulance chase to make a living in a very, very segregated and racially charged city, going up against this incredibly powerful, rich white law firm. And I can buy that as his motivation just more than I can, a sudden sort of epiphany about like gay rights or whatever.
I think he feels more pity for him and does not feel any empathy for him until the opera scene. I mean, that's the big thing. It's not like he immediately starts liking Andrew. I think he just goes like, fuck, I've been prejudiced against as well. Ding dong.
Oh, someone at the door.
Craig.
Who we got?
Hello, David.
You again? This isn't even your movie.
Well, but it is a service that has a lot.
Right.
You have to.
It's unavoidable. It's Dr. Hannibal Lecter.
This was an alley-oop. Of course, I'm going to come on to talk about Talkspace.
Right. And I mean, it's the perfect time to talk about it because New Year's always reminds you of everything you didn't do the year before,
right. Some people you left uneaten, David.
Exactly. You got habits you want to kick off for 2020, but you don't have to set unrealistic goals to make positive changes, Doctor.
Yes. I mean, David, I have to be honest here. I have to flip some cards over on the table.
Okay.
It would seem like I'm coming in here to promote Talkspace because I myself am a former therapist.
A psychiatrist, I believe.
Oh,
you got an MD.
Potato. But in fact, David, I'm here to speak as a customer.
Oh, you enjoy Talkspace?
Yes. In the last couple of months, I've started to consider the fact that maybe I have some
There's
psychological
a little up
problems
with you.
myself.
Right. You got a couple things you maybe need to talk through.
Right.
Well, there's no one-size-fits-all way to meet your goals. You want a sustainable way to make a lasting change? On Talkspace, you have convenient, affordable support from a licensed therapist. There's over 5,000 that you can match with.
A great number, my favorite number.
It's all from the privacy of your device. You can talk to them via text, audio, pictures, video. And your therapist
Computer
will
at the
provide
public library.
Exactly. Right. And your therapist will provide ongoing guidance and support so you can see concrete change at your own pace. It's like a little personal trainer for your life, and you don't have to go to an office or schedule appointments, which is, something that matters for you because you're on the lam.
I'm on the lam, and here's another thing, David. I want to show how well Talkspace works. Here is growth I have made since the last time I was on the podcast. I have now, through working with a therapist at Talkspace, come to terms with the fact that I eat stabs is unhealthy.
I'm glad you finally realized that.
It is probably the biggest deficiency in my personality.
Well, maybe you need a couple more sessions.
Well, we haven't talked about anything else other than the stamps.
Well, Talkspace Online Therapy is going to find you the perfect licensed therapist to be your dedicated support system. So, start 2020 off strong with Talkspace. It's the support you need to help you achieve your goals at the price you can afford, and you can get $100 off your first month if you use code CHECK when you sign up.
That's a great deal.
So don't wait for another year to go by. No matter what 2019 was like, set yourself up for success in 2020. Match with the perfect therapist today at Talkspace.com. Or you can download the mobile app, and don't forget to use code CHECK for $100 off your first month. That's Talkspace.com, promo code CHECK.
And I'm calling it right now, 2020, the year Hannibal Lecter stops eating stamps, and then everything's fine, and then he's a perfect person.
Stop making sense. Stop eating stamps.
Well, that's very, very funny, David.
Thank you so much.
5 comedy points.
I mean, you famously got a dry wit.
Dry like a
nice Chianti.
Like a Chianti. You got that before me.
Let's get to that damn opera scene, because I just want to talk about how that is the Oscar clip.
Yeah.
And it was his Oscar clip.
Yeah.
As a part of the scene, obviously. And it's so funny to think of it as an Oscar clip.
It is so bizarre.
Because it is such a daring and interesting.
It looks like
and
Suspiria.
abstract scene.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, he goes into
And,
theatrical lighting for the first time in the movie where suddenly Tom Hanks is in a spotlight.
Exactly.
You're at these crazy overhead
room is red.
Angles.
Yeah.
I mean, the way he uses angles in this movie.
The angle
great.
is like over the forehead. It's like
Yeah.
such a secure. I don't know that I've ever seen a sustained shot like that, in something.
Right. It was enough to stop 19-year-old Griffin Newman flipping through the channels in a common room and go, what is this filmmaking?
Right.
Like, it was so visually arresting that I was like, what the fuck is this movie? And why didn't anyone tell me that Philadelphia is this?
And at that point, had we ever seen Tom Hanks in such an artful kind of shot?
No, absolutely not.
Like that was brand new.
Probably.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Turner and Hooch has a couple really nice angles, right?
Yes. Well, yes.
Because Hooch was the cinematographer.
Well, it's all
Did
one.
double duty.
It's all
It
one
was shot
take.
all from his collar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
and
one
it's
take.
Bruce Springsteen's dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's weird that Russian art gets all that credit for what Turner and Hooch actually pioneered.
Right. Who's the lady in Turner and Hooch?
I just was gonna say Hooch, but I decided I've done that joke too many
Like
times.
Mary Stuart Masterson or like Mary Kay Place or
Liv
someone
Ullmann
like
or
that.
someone like
It's
that.
Jessica Tandy.
Geraldine Page.
It was Catherine Hepburn. Let's see. It's Mayor Winningham.
Oh, I knew it was an M.
Who is? What did I just see Mayor Winningham in?
Theater.
Huh?
Did you see her in play?
No, I saw her in a movie. Oh, Dark Waters.
Oh,
which
you saw
the
that.
Todd Haynes film,
I
which
wanna
again,
see
this
that.
is January. I fucking loved.
I don't
Everyone
know.
who had seen it was like, yeah, it's okay. It's like a legal drama, and I'm like, legal drama. You say? Have you? Wait, has someone done wrong?
But that is a much more straightforward sort of legal movie, right?
Yes, it is. But I think it fucking rules, and I can yell about it later.
He's a good filmmaker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, just Bill Pullman has like 3 scenes as a showboating West Virginia
Oh
lawyer.
my God.
I was just literally
David.
hooting and hollering and firing my 6 shooters in the air. I don't know how to describe it.
David, you can't say that series of words that quickly without preparing it. Bill Pullman has 3 scenes.
Well, he has the thing going, and I'm just like, whoa.
Oh my
This
God.
thing's dealing for the bottom of the deck.
I'm getting full body chills.
That pizza just folded me.
Whoa, Nelly. What if I started using that as a term like, she really folded my pizza?
Oh, boy. Anyway,
Yeah,
the
I would
opera
support
scene. It's just funny because, like, now we think of the Oscar scene
Yeah.
as this, like, the moment that you deride. It's kind of like in Green Book when Mahershala gives that speech. Mahershala does a good job.
Yeah.
But where you're like, oh, this is the Oscar
But
scene.
they are so often the scene where the actor has free reign to sort of like almost step out of the film,
Right.
circle everything the film is saying, underline it, place it in italics, and then scream it with as much emotion as possible.
Right.
And this is the opposite.
This is
of that.
100%, and this is the power of this scene is like finally like Denzel sees this man as a person, right? And sees him as like a person with feelings and opinions and thoughts and like feeling and passion and all that, right? And obviously Hanks does crush it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
But those shots of Denzel's face.
Oh my Lord.
First it's very dark, and then there's that sort of red light coming up on him. Really blow my mind. And then
you're actually watching someone's heart change.
You go from
Yeah.
You go from that to this scene where Denzel just needs to go home and hold his child.
Yeah.
Like, right. And Joanna was watching with me and she was like, oh, don't pick up the baby. You're going to wake up the baby. And I'm like, Joanna, he needs to hold his baby.
And then he like
Like,
gets
right now.
into bed with his wife
just
and looks like
holds
he
her.
just came back from war. Like he's like staring off in the middle distance with his eyes full of tears.
And this is where I'm like, a studio might just, or a director might be, well, we have to cut this. This is just like,
But this is
too soggy.
This is the exact film
this
Demi
is
wants to
Demi.
make. This is the
is
most
the
important
magic.
thing. As you said, the entire goal of this film is to make people realize that people with AIDS are human beings.
Yeah.
And that is where this film succeeds so wildly.
Yeah.
And I read arguments as well that they're like, I went down reading too many 90s reviews of this film. But
Only 90s reviewers understand.
and not just people in the gay community, but I feel like a lot of critics who felt like, oh, this is the prism I have to view this movie through. I'm going to assume what other people would find offensive about it. And they said, like, when he has this opera speech, it comes out of nowhere because you know so little about who he is, his personal life, his interests up until that point in time. And I'm like, first of all, it's not like this is really that kind of movie. It's not like this film has a bunch of scenes where like Denzel talks about how much he loves watching hockey, or gardening or anything. It's not a movie about people's like hobbies. It is so sort of propulsive. It jumps over such periods of time.
Right.
But you also need to sort of withhold that information from the audience. You cannot have Tom Hanks talk about anything outside of business, his health, his immediate life to Denzel
case,
until this moment, because it also needs to come after the Halloween scene where for the first time he's socializing with him.
And he sees him, look.
A Cover of Heaven from the Talking Heads.
Absolutely. And Tom is at his straightest,
Yes.
dressed in navy whites with Antonio.
Yes. I love that Denzel has such
Really
a fucking
toning it down. Right?
corny dad joke costume.
Yes.
That he's a lawsuit.
He's a lawsuit.
Right.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And he orders wine, which I think is interesting. I also love the.
Hey, I just want to say, sorry, the movie is about someone's hobby. Bruce Springsteen. His hobby
Right,
was
sorry,
walking
yeah.
the streets of
Right,
Philadelphia
right,
with a
of course.
television.
Yeah.
Showing people VCR recordings of Captain Planet.
I love that he stays after the party to talk about the case or whatever. And
Yeah.
it just made me think about, this is kind of a weird connection, but like the scene in Seven where Morgan Freeman goes to dinner and they have the dinner and they laugh about the train rumbling the house. And then later they're like Gwyneth Paltrow's asleep or whatever. And they're like in the living room, like working on the case.
Yes.
I like that sort of like, okay, like social time done. Let's get back to work. There's something kind of cozy about it.
I love them.
I
Yes.
guess. And then to have this scene in this movie.
When I think of Seven, I
Yeah.
think cozy.
Yeah.
Oh, fully. Yeah, just a cheery
a
little
warm blanket.
Yeah, and no one in it is problematic, which is great.
Oh, perfect.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, it's full of a bunch of woke kings.
Yeah.
This is my new thing, I guess.
Yeah. But yes, I do love that kind of energy in scenes. I also just think it's a thing I love about Demi, we talked about this a lot. It certainly happens a lot in Melvin and Howard, where like what he chooses to cut over and what moments he chooses to spotlight instead. It is so great that there is no scene where, and I feel like most movies would didactically have the scene where Andrew invites him to the Halloween party, where he's like, "Oh,
You want me
maybe
to go
I'll
what?
come."
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
He goes home to his wife. Can you believe it? She gives him a hard time.
Sure.
She's the heart of
Now,
Green
you
Book.
have to go. She
Right.
is the heart of Green Book. Linda
Right.
Cardellini,
She
we
explains
must
to
say.
him, right, that he has to go. Then you see there, it's so much more powerful to be like, you don't know what changed in him, but something broke him down just enough to go to this Halloween party and feel really uncomfortable.
Right.
Like he showed up and he's so uptight being there.
Right.
And that's all you need to know. That he made that much progress that he was willing to show up, maybe just because he knew that was the thing he had to do before he could then, after the party, sit
Do the
down and
work,
talk
yeah.
about the work.
When is the scene when he sort of when they're talking the case, when he sort of bluntly says to Hanks, like, I'm not into it, right? And Hanks is like, well, thanks for sharing that with me.
I
They
feel
have
like
that
it's
weird,
in the
tense
courtroom,
exchange.
right? It's like at the desk.
Yeah.
And that's pretty late in the movie,
Yeah.
too. It's just, they never quite, like, let it go.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
I like that they don't become like best friends.
Right. They don't have him come over to his house for dinner at Christmas and meet the whole family, and all the Italian guys are like, hey, yo, Don Shirley, right? hey, cool guy.
Right, that like fucking
Virtuoso.
thing in Green Book where somehow him becoming less racist immediately cures all of his friends of racism by proximity.
Yeah, well, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
To fold your pizza is to fold the world's. I think that's really the message.
Were you going to say something else about the Aria scene?
No, I don't think so. I think it's lovely and unexpected and weird at the same time. I kind of was left feeling like how much of this is actually happening. But yeah, it's just like, again, I can't imagine that being in this kind of movie now.
No, people would say you can't do that in this type of film. That's
Right.
too
It
big of a
doesn't
swing.
fit.
It's too weird. It's too big of a tonal shift, a stylistic shift. I mean, all of that.
But that enough people went to go see that in theater in 1993 that it made $200 million worldwide is like crazy.
It's insane.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
I also like that the film does not have the legal drama part of it.
Yeah.
Does not have some scene where suddenly someone just gets on the stand and is like, yeah, we actually did fire him because he
Right.
was gay.
Right.
That's that. Like, you know,
Right.
you have the scene with the lesions.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's sort of an interesting legal scene where Mary Steenburgen has made this fatal error of bringing the mirror in to do her trick. And it's like, once you bring that mirror in, then Denzel's going to get to use the mirror too.
Yeah.
Right.
And like,
that shot is so beautiful too,
Right.
where it goes to like Hanks's perspective.
well, that's the thing where like the angle just feels like it's tilting more and more.
But
where
he tilts the mirror to get him in the frame.
Yeah.
But yes, him on the stand when he finally starts making a stand, and
Right. And he's
Demi
like
just ratchets up
losing
the sort
strength.
of
Right.
yes.
Yeah. Right. So I like that. That's kind of Charles Napier is the judge.
I was going to say, okay,
Oh,
because
so
that's
good.
also
Love
a
him.
really fascinating performance. And
It's just fun to watch, to do this in blank check, to watch these movies basically in order and
know.
just see all Demi's guys. Like
And you're
every
like-
movie. The guy with the lazy eye is the doctor, the
Right.
slightly prejudiced doctor.
And you're like 2 movies ago, Napier was Michelle Pfeiffer's gay hairdresser.
Right, in Marriage
And
with
now
Love,
he's
right.
like the bigoted sort of like judge.
He's not bigoted.
Well-
He's kind of like, he's sort of playing it down the middle, but, you know, kind of letting them do their antics.
But that's
Yeah.
what I like is I feel like he is leaning on the side of prejudice, but telling himself that he is completely
Right.
open-minded and even-handed. And there's that
At the
series
end,
of
he's
moments.
just like, this case is concluded. Like, he doesn't. You know,
Daniel von Bargen, who plays
the foreman of the
lead
jury,
drawer, right, and doesn't speak until he gets into close quarters. There's the series of shots where they're exchanging looks with each other, where Napier will say something kind of like snarky as a judge, and then he'll look over to Daniel von Bargen. Daniel von Bargen will smile at him, being like, yeah, this is like fucking crazy, right? Like they're both not really taking this guy's plight seriously. Because Napier will say the like, look, this courtroom is free of any prejudice, any judgment. We don't see race. We don't see orientation. But he says that right after he said, I don't understand why you want to talk about this person's personal life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know? Like, when Denzel asks someone else if they are gay, Napier immediately goes, well, that's not something we bring into it. But of course, they would never question someone's heterosexuality in that way.
No.
If someone's wife was invoked on the stand, he wouldn't go, please, this
Yeah,
courtroom
this
is
is-
completely.
Joanna, like when they say you're an active homosexual, like Joanna who's like, imagine saying someone's an active heterosexual.
Well, it's a kind of thing where like
I'm active.
Right, but
I'm out
that's
there.
the thing. Like Napier keeps on doing shit like that, and then he'll kind of make a little joke out of it.
Yeah.
and it doesn't feel like he's going like, "Man, gay people are gross." It's more him going like, "Man, this fucking world."
yeah.
I'll tell you, who's an
But that
active
he has a guy
heterosexual.
in the
Bruce
jury
Springsteen
box.
walking those streets.
Okay. David's whipping a fastball against the wall of the
I'm like
recording
knocking
studio.
over
I
a
don't know what
coconut.
you're
You know,
doing. Yeah,
the
knocking over-
carnival. Like,
Throwing batteries.
yeah, throwing a bad. Well, weird that Ben leapt to that.
Whipping batteries.
Putting a little extra fold on that pizza.
yeah.
Oh boy.
I just think that the film is so good in presenting all the different sort of levels of prejudice against
Well,
him.
right. I mean, the thing about it is that like when a friend said this to me a couple years ago after I had a particularly odd, not bad exactly, but odd experience with some family members over Thanksgiving, where he was like, well, yeah, when you're gay, like everything is R-rated automatically. Like you
right.
can't talk about
Yeah,
anything.
right,
Like I was talking basically to my cousin's kid who's like a teenager who but and then just the mom just sort of like froze up and got
Yeah.
weird, and I was like, what is going? Because I said, oh yeah, I used to like doing that when I was your age, or whatever. And then I was like thinking about it more. It's like, oh, it's because like there's all that attendant stuff, and I think that like that thing in the courtroom like really well illustrates it. These aren't like actively bigoted people. It's just like it's an extra layer of too
And
personal.
that thing that keeps on getting brought up of like, well, so like you got AIDS by accident. There are the AIDS victims who are sort of like innocent. What a horrible tragedy that they caught this disease. That whether
They're
or
collateral
not
damage.
I'm a religious fundamentalist, everyone's sort of buying into this idea that it's like a gay curse.
Right.
You know, and what are the odds of someone outside of the community getting that unwillingly? They didn't do anything to ask this.
And one of the big things Steve Merchant
themselves.
tries to tag Hanks with was like, have you been to like a gay porn theater? Have you had sex with, have you picked up guys on the street? Like trying to be basically like, well, your lifestyle. I mean,
and she does that super shitty thing where she tries to frame it as like, because of course the case keeps on coming back to this idea that he was, insufficient as a lawyer.
Yes.
That was the firing
He was incompetent.
grounds. Right. That he was incompetent. That she brings up all of that as, well, do you consider yourself to have good judgment?
Right.
You know? And would you say potentially infecting your partner is good judgment? So she's like trying to hide behind the guise of like, I'm not shaming you for being part of the gay lifestyle. I'm saying you made a really big risk in your life, which shows that that was the kind of judgment or lack thereof that could be applied to your dealings as a lawyer. That scene also where I forget who it is, but is this the Roger Corman thing? Now I'm trying to remember the caviar scene.
Caviar scene. Remind me.
Where it was a client who Hanks had previously represented and won the case, and they bring him to trial to speak to Hanks being incompetent as a lawyer.
Right. Oh, yeah. And the guy is like, he is competent. Right. You know, he's changed his wording from like,
and he's like, if I got a bologna sandwich, you would call that competent.
Right.
But if you had caviar for lunch, you would not call that competent because 6 months ago you said that Andrew was the caviar of lawyers. Right. All that stuff is just like such good fucking lawyer speak shit. Oh, the woman, of course, who got AIDS through the blood transfusion. And when they're trying to railroad her and back her in the corner and make her passively say things that kind of condemn Hanks more. And there's that moment where the two of them look at each other and you're like, fuck, this is like the brutality of the legal system, people manipulating it. She's now said something that's going to hurt Hanks, even though you can tell that isn't her intention. And then she just speaks up.
Right.
In that moment of sympathetic imagination where she's like, I want to just say one final thing.
Yeah.
There is no difference between me and anyone else who has AIDS. That's once again, it's like, that's the shit that Demi wants to say. Like he wants to grab the American public by the shoulders.
And
go like, I understand you don't all live in the East Village. You're not losing friends on a regular basis.
Right. But he smuggles it in entertaining court drama, in artful filmmaking, in big, like it's just such a clever delivery system for something that people needed to hear.
Yeah.
Right. Because so it doesn't feel like vegetables the way that Just Mercy kind of feels like, okay, like
Just Mercy is very vegetable.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. And even like all the other sort of like AIDS crisis movies of the time are not things that people revisit. Because even if they felt kind of pivotal in terms of what they were saying, I don't think anyone is like, man, the craft in Longtime Companion is so strong. I'm so engaged in those narratives. It's also telling that Longtime Companion, the performance that gets an Oscar nomination is the grieving, unafflicted partner.
Right.
It's like that's the tragedy is the person who has to watch someone die.
I've never seen that film. I know that's a very early Hollywood
that was
effort.
like the first one. Yeah.
And that's not even it's like Samuel Goldwyn Company where it's like, indie. Anyway, the jury basically sits down and it's pretty obvious that their whole thing is like, look, you can't convince me the guy was incompetent. You'd put him on the fucking case a couple weeks ago.
I just love that it comes down to like they put him on his best case. Why would you do this?
Can I ask a question though about that? Wouldn't it be a mistrial to have Bruce Springsteen like swaying the jury in the jury room?
I don't know. I mean, the laws of Philadelphia are very complex.
That's true.
And he was taking advantage.
They're just written. They're written on a hoagie.
Because in the other yes, in his other hand is the Constitution of Philadelphia, which of course is a hoagie.
It is, as we all know.
They keep it under the Liberty Bell.
God, the emotional final scenes of the film are Hank's collapsing in court, Hank's in the hospital, and the scene we talked about where Denzel is sort of whatever, changed enough to reach over and adjust his mask and not be afraid of touching him.
And you have his entire family come and ostensibly say their goodbyes. It's that weird thing when you have someone who is on death's door where you know that anytime you leave the room, it might be the last time you ever see them.
Well, they're like, "I'll see you tomorrow."
Right,
and
they're all doing that.
And then the last brother breaks down. Like everyone's doing the like, and remember, you still owe me $10. Like, right. And then, yeah.
Very sad. I cried a lot.
Me too.
And I had to go get something in the kitchen, and my roommate and his boyfriend were out there, and I was just like red-faced and messy, and they were like, "Hi,
well,
are you okay?"
A humble brag.
It's
It's
that was me after I saw the Time Traveler's Wife on cable one time.
And you just remember how fun it was to make that movie.
My son. My dad.
And then there's, the memorial, and you see Denzel going there. And then there's what feels like an hour of home videos.
Yeah. What's also, you got this long oneer throughout the entire room.
Which I love. I love that.
And you tweeted this last night, but like, it doesn't have a death scene per se, but it is a movie that feels like it very briefly, only at its tail end, captures the actual spirit of grieving and remembering someone after they pass.
I mean, the movie that I referenced, to compare it to was BPM, Beats Per Minute, which a French movie that came out a couple years ago.
Great movie.
That has this exquisitely sad but beautiful death scene that is really just about the mother of the man who dies of AIDS in Paris in 1991, I think it is, and his friends just kind of they're sad, but they're also like
trying to celebrate.
Yeah, it's like it's gorgeous, and it really
lost,
feels so real. And in Philadelphia, they knew he was going to die, so it's not like the shock. It's just like there's a little relief. Because he's like free from pain, and you know, and so I just think that end scene and that Neil Young song capture it perfectly.
Philadelphia, what's up?
Yeah, this is
the Phillies.
He's playing it in the corner. I just think that scene's great.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, I love LA, but
I love Philly.
He's actually just talking about meat.
Yes.
Just no one called him on it.
Filet of fish.
Let's play the box office game.
But I want to say a couple fun things here. As you said, it is that humanizing thing of just like, you're not even showing Hanks anymore. You're not even showing America's favorite movie star. You're not even showing this performance. You're showing video footage of a random kid, an actor, hired to play a kid or whatever.
I assume so, right? That's not real home video footage.
No, I don't
Hanks
think it can be.
or anything like
right.
That, right? Yeah.
But it does underline this thing that like we lose track of just like everyone was like a child once, and you would never discriminate against that child in the way you do at the adult. And nothing has fundamentally changed with that person just because you dislike their identity. It's not an action that they made, that's just when I started crying.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like on the brink rewatching most of the movie, and then that I dropped a couple tears.
You dropped a couple.
And I think the Neil Young song is great. I think it's a better song.
Really pretty.
Oh, no, that's crazy. Streets of Philadelphia
is
fucking
gorgeous.
honks. That's crazy. That's nuts. I do like the Neil Young song.
I think Philadelphia slaps, though. I think it's a bop.
It's good. It's good. I mean,
I put it on at the club when the beat drops. I'm just out there.
It's an interesting year for original song, because you got A Wink and a Smile, which is a nice Sleepless in Seattle song.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Mark Shaman.
Yeah.
You got again the Janet Jackson song from Poetic Justice.
Oh,
weird.
Oh god.
And then. I mean, you have the movie, the song that probably should have won, which is The Day I Fall in Love from Beethoven's Second.
Yeah, I'm proud of that song.
Beethoven's Second.
That's right.
Got an Oscar nomination for Richard Lawson.
It got an Oscar nomination for, of course, the Academy Award for Motion
me and
Picture
Beethoven
of the Year
co-wrote
and
it.
Best Original Song.
Yeah.
Remember Beethoven's Second?
Does Charles Grodin remember Beethoven's Second?
He was in it.
Is that the one where he pulls the house down on the lake house?
Probably.
God, I just remember when I was a kid, like renting some video, right, from the video store, and there was a trailer for I believe Beethoven 1 in front of it.
Yeah.
Beethoven's first.
Yeah. And just being like, I have to see this now. I was probably like 6 years old, right? It's the trailer where Grodin's like going up the stairs and there's like drool, and he's like, oh, and then there's just the dog, and I was just like, this looks like a masterpiece.
Yeah.
And I gotta see it.
You just ran
Who's
into your
the wife
parents.
in that movie?
Well, it's Bonnie Hunt.
It's Bonnie Hunt.
Yeah.
Right.
It's Hunt and Grodin. Yeah.
Hunt and Grodin.
I think Grodin pretty much retires.
And Pacino's the dog?
Pacino is the dog. Yeah. Uncredited, but yeah.
So should we do the wide weekend?
Oh, it platformed?
Let's do the narrow weekend. Let's do the actual release date, December.
Okay.
It's basically Christmas time, 1993.
Okay.
So it opens limited.
watch out.
But it's important. Yes.
not cry.
He actually has a great Christmas song.
Yeah.
Santa Claus is coming to town. He's like,
That's the
"Hey,
one I was
Clarence!"
just singing.
I know, but I
Yeah.
love it. He's like, "Hey,
It
Clarence,
rules.
you've been a good boy this year.
Yeah.
Santa's gonna bring you a saxophone."
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun.
Just important to remember, it was a big hit. Made 77 domestic, 200 worldwide, adjusted for inflation.
It's like 170 or something.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
172.
Yeah, crazy.
I
I mean, absolutely insane.
yeah. So, domestic, number one at the box office. It's a film we've mentioned on this very episode, a big legal thriller in its second week.
It's not the Pelican Brief?
It is The Pelican Brief.
Wow, Denzel.
And Julia. Don't
Den
forget.
fucking Zell. I'm just saying, to have both of these at the same time.
That's
I know,
crazy.
I know. Number two is the most quotable comedy of all time.
Beethoven second.
Nope. Good guess, though. That's number four.
From 1992.
It's the most quotable comedy of all time.
But I can't tell
Wayne's
if you're being
World?
sincere or not.
We've discussed it on this podcast as the most quotable comedy of all time.
Oh, it's
too.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, Drive-By Fruiting.
Ben Reese, a long time ago
Yeah.
now, was like, well, that's the most quotable comedy of all time. And I was like, what's like
I feel
a
like I was in the
quote?
room for that.
You might have
maybe?
been.
Yeah.
I was
Came
like-
up in a box office game as a
then you-
hint.
and then
Ben
you
said,
said-
it's very quotable.
And I was like,
Right,
what's a quote? And
And
you
then Ben said, hello.
hello.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, boy. Drive-by fruiting, though.
Drive-by
Yep.
fruiting, yeah.
I don't know.
I am job.
looks like a lady.
Doesn't she go?
I saw do
am
Bruce
job.
singing everything.
I am job very.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
job is funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mrs. Doubtfire. Care to tell me the domestic final total of Mrs. Doubtfire?
264?
219.
Okay.
Adjusted for inflation, let's.
It was one of the 10 highest grossing films of all time.
How are you surviving the
485.
box office mojo?
I'm on the numbers, baby.
Yeah.
Fully switched. I love it. Numbers is
bye
good.
Bye mojo.
Oh,
I
yeah.
gotta say, like several times a day,
Pray for
I
Mojo.
type in Box Office Mojo to look up something,
No, I'm-
and then I
like,
just like
I've forgotten it.
I feel such a great sense of loss.
It's gone.
I just got so familiar and comfortable with that interface. I've been on it for so long. I will learn to love the numbers.
Credit to the numbers. They've been very responsive, as clearly they're being flooded.
They're stepping up.
And they're like, hey, we just added this. They
Yeah.
keep posting updates where we're like, oh, you guys asked for sorting. We're going to put in sorting.
Yeah.
So good job to the numbers. Number 3 at the box office is a sequel to a big hit comedy. But it's not Beethoven second.
But did you get the adjusted number on Doubtfire?
485 domestic?
Unbelievable.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Hello.
She has cake on her face.
She does.
Okay, wait. Number 4 or number 3?
Number 4 was Beethoven second, but number 3 is
Number
another.
4 was Beethoven second?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But number 3, what's the final total on Beethoven second? Let's find out.
I'm gonna guess 41.
52. Pretty good.
Very robust.
But number 3 is another sequel to a hit comedy.
Is it Wayne's World 2?
No, that is number 5.
Wow.
It's crazy to think about that.
Yeah.
When did
This
the
is
first
Christmas.
Wayne's World? Was that
A year earlier,
92, right?
Yeah.
They were like 11 months apart.
Yeah.
It was very much a let's just squeeze this for all it's
Yeah.
worth
100%.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, it's just crazy thing like Christmas time in the 90s where they're like, this is a post Home Alone world.
Yeah.
Where they're like, yeah, comedies, just flood the zone with
Yeah.
comedies.
Right.
90s
family
really were
comedy.
peak like comedy franchise.
100%. You got the Pelican Brief up at top.
Yeah.
But apart from that, Doubtfire, Beethoven second, Wayne's
Right.
World 2, and number 3 that you guys refused to guess, a sequel to a hit comedy film.
Well, I didn't realize we had
When
skipped
was-
over it.
I had no
How
not
long
actually
ago?
mad about this.
How many years had it been since the original?
Is this number 2?
This is number 2.
2 and final?
Yes. Although, I mean,
I
you
see
could
it-
make a
yeah,
third.
I see it coming back.
You could make a third. The first one, just to triple check this. So this is coming out in obviously 93. The first one came out in 92, so just a year earlier.
Wow.
The first one, I mean, it is a big drop off. The first one made 231 domestic, and this one made 57.
Jeez.
This was a little bit like,
It's not Adam's Family Values.
no.
It's not Sister Act 2? It is.
Back in the habit.
Back in
That was
the-
so
I think-
soon after that.
I think they
That's
might
interesting.
have. They could have waited a year.
These
Yeah,
were-
yeah,
they-
yeah.
But that's Wayne's World was the same thing. It was so fast.
Too fast.
This is the era of like Paramount,
Because Wayne's World,
Touchstone, and Fox just whipping them out. You know?
Wayne's World also 47.
Just folding pizzas.
Yeah, just full piece.
And like the first one made 183 to 47. Like, so it's just
crazy.
kind of like, yeah, relax.
Yeah.
Number 6 is Geronimo, an American Legend.
Mm.
Walter Hills.
Yeah.
Wes Studi.
Wes Studi.
Recent Oscar. Number 7 is The Piano, which it is.
Excuse me. It's called The Piano.
The Piano, which, look, I just still think it's crazy that movie made any money or won Oscars.
Yeah.
That movie's insane.
Yeah.
I love it's one of my favorite movies of the 90s. I love it, but that made $40 million.
It is one of my
amazing.
favorite jokes. I forget where it happens. It might be in an Oh Hello. But
The snub-nosed pistol.
yeah.
Harvey Keitel's
John
penis.
Mulaney referring to Harvey Keitel's penis as a snub-nosed little pistol.
Jesus.
We got Schindler's List.
That guy, he really had an incredible run in the 90s.
Harvey Keitel's penis?
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
It's weird. He hasn't worked in a while.
It's just wild that it's just like, all right, what's this movie? I guess I'll go see it. I'll probably it'll get like a Wayne's World 2 type gross. Okay, what's it about? Well, this mute woman is married to an aristocrat in New Zealand, and she really loves her piano, but they can't bring it up the cliff, so she starts to sell sexual favors to bring it up key by key. And they're like, one of those. All right, fine. It's like, what? What is this
Keep on
movie?
telling the same stories over and over
Yeah,
again.
Harvey Keitel's dick is in it a lot.
Again?
There's a weird little girl.
She's so good. Incredible in that movie.
Oscar winner.
Yep. Schindler's List just opened in
Wow.
its second week. And then you got Addams Family Values, a great work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A perfect comedy sequel.
Correct.
I mean,
And that was like only
way
what?
better.
That was 2 years after they
2.
were? Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
number 1 is 91. Those movies were also, unlike, like, say, a Wayne's World 2,
They have-
incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Those movies have the production value.
production
Yeah,
value.
yeah.
of those movies are so-
Costuming and
the
all that.
effects still look so good too. Like
Thing.
Thing looks
We
fucking
stand.
great in that movie.
Who-
and
how
all
cool
the
is Thing?
crazy like Evil Dead style like
Thing's
cameras
amazing.
following Thing.
Remember Thing? Thing.
Oh yeah, the hand boy, of course.
They finally just put values out on Blu-ray. It had
Really?
not been out.
Hmm.
It was only the first one.
So good.
So
Values
good.
is way better than the
Where's my
first one.
4K? Where's my Steelbook?
I don't know. And then the Three Musketeers.
Oh,
I saw that in theaters with Chris
O'Donnell.
O'Donnell.
Mm-hmm.
Pacino saw that one too.
And Gerard Depardieu.
Kiefer Sutherland, I believe.
Charlie
that's
Sheen.
that
Gerard
one.
Depardieu is in Man in the Iron Mask.
Yes.
Right. I'm. This is the one with all like.
It's like the young guns.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's Sheen,
Yeah.
Sutherland, O'Donnell, and who's the fourth?
Let me look it up. Isn't it like Oliver Platt or something?
Yeah,
I think it
it
is
is.
Oliver
It is
Platt.
Oliver Platt.
Oliver Platt.
Yeah.
It's Oliver
I saw the film in
Platt.
theaters. It's
Yeah.
Sheen, Sutherland, O'Donnell, Oliver Platt, Tim Curry is the villain,
Okay.
Right.
and then Rebecca De Mornay is the
Right.
love interest. Is,
Right.
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
That is a real time capsule
Yeah.
right there.
Yep.
It really is. Remember that? No?
All for One, the song.
Yeah.
Was it Bryan Adams and Sting?
Bruce Springsteen.
Right.
Sorry. No, it's. I'm trying to find the poster. Yeah, there it is.
That was Disney?
Yep, Disney. There they are. There they are. Bunch of hotties.
Sheen gets
Yep.
first billing.
Well, yeah.
Is that a poster where they're actually going left to right, matching the heads with the names?
No, not at
No,
all.
okay, I
you know-
couldn't see from this distance. I was asking.
Here we go. Here's a zoomed in.
When I think of
Oh,
18th
geez.
century France, I tend to think of Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen and
Yeah.
Kiefer Sutherland.
Kiefer right in the middle.
Kiefer in the middle looking good.
Looking pretty snacky.
Yeah. Chris O'Donnell just looks just like the blandest like pat of butter.
Oh,
He's
I mean,
just-
he was pretty.
Oh, I know.
He was a pretty big. Like him and Batman Forever was a sexual awakening for a lot of gay men.
And
Just
for
saying.
my girlfriend,
Yeah.
sure.
And for Joel Schumacher. It is kind of crazy how blandly handsome he is, though. And I say this
Yeah.
as no like backhanded
He
compliment.
just never really stepped into the, what
Right.
you'd expect that person to eventually be like, oh, let me do some harder stuff. Maybe do
Right.
some grittier stuff.
He's on NCIS Los Angeles now?
Yeah, he's quietly just very rich because he's
Right,
on that
just
show.
He's
for
on
making
like
money.
the highest
Yeah.
rated show on television?
Like him and LL Cool J
third
just went
highest.
there to
Is
hide.
it third?
I don't know.
It might be number one. It had a season or two where it was number one.
Linda Hunt has been on that show since the beginning.
Yes.
I think she might have gotten written out. I can't remember.
Really?
It's on it. I believe it's on its 10th season, which is
Yeah.
the wildest
Insane.
thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, Navy crimes in LA are a serious thing.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of them going on.
Wait, Navy crimes?
That's what the NCIS investigates, Navy crimes.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Naval Criminal Investigative Service.
Oh my god, I did not know
It's
that.
the second spin-off of a spin-off.
It's a
There was
spin-off of
Jag.
JAG, which is about Army lawyers.
Uh-huh,
Right.
I know that show.
And then they were like, this NCIS stuff's kind of interesting. Spun that off. It grew into being the number one show on television. And then they've done 2 satellite shows, including NCIS New Orleans, which has the weirdest cast of any
It's got
procedural.
Lucas Black, CCH Pounder, Scott
Bakula.
Bakula.
But that's not still on, is it?
It is.
I say, it certainly is. I think it's all of that. It's just
Wow.
like, well, down here in New Orleans,
Yeah.
it's a little different. Like, it's
all
just
fan,
that.
it's all
every week.
fan boat chases.
It's like, right, exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
there's been a Navy crime. I say. I've never seen it. I
We
have
solve
no
our
idea.
nautical crimes a little slower down here.
Every episode, they think it's voodoo for like 30 minutes.
Can we rule it
Yeah.
out?
I remember like the poster for the first season, like announcing the show was like the four of them up on a balcony on Bourbon Street.
Sure.
Like just watching the nightlife.
No, NCIS is the only one that truly crushes in the ratings when you're looking at.
Really? Los Angeles was never number one?
No, let's see what NCIS
What a brutal cell phone for me.
lost. It looks like its top position.
Your punishment is to watch 10 episodes of NCIS.
Its top position was 4,
Yeah.
which is not bad.
Yeah.
In from 2012 to 2014, it was the 4th most popular show
Wow.
on TV behind NCIS, The Big Bang Theory, and Sunday Night Football.
God. CBS has 4.
Well, CBS is now in the tank. CBS is finally seeing the reels come off. But that's another story.
Well, that's for another episode.
I say.
You want to hear something crazy? Kyle Catlett, who is the actor who played young Arthur on The Tick, Little Me. When I was asking, he's like this weird, like tested out of school at like 12, speaks 15 languages, has a black belt in karate, like polymath, autodidact kid. And I asked him what made him want to become an actor. And he said, I was watching an episode of NCIS and I liked the people who sit behind the computer.
Sure.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that would be fun to do for a living. And it's like the only person I've ever heard of who wanted to get into
It's like,
acting.
I realized that's my ceiling and that's what I'm going for.
It wasn't even
But
that.
I know.
No, he said it with this like
I know.
like
He's like,
that
"That's
looked
cool."
amazing. Like it was like eye-opening, like watching
does
Brando
look
doing
cool, right.
like on the waterfront or something. It was like they get to like deliver exposition. They just swivel around
Right.
in a chair.
That's really funny.
And he was like, someday I hope I get that part.
And
He was
someday
like
he
the
will.
lead in a Genet movie, and he was in the Poltergeist remake. Like him being the Tick was like his least
Sure.
important credit at that point. And he was,
Was
like,
he
I
in
just,
Meekmucks?
he was not in Meekmucks.
The other one?
Tia Lego. He was the prodigious T.S. Pivot. He's the titular character in that movie.
Cool.
The one that was not released because of Harvey Weinstein.
Who?
America's, he just loves
Sounds like
going
a
to
case
live
for
comedy.
NCIS New Orleans.
Yeah, he's America's greatest comedy show audience member.
I don't know.
I don't know. Who knows?
We're done.
Whatever. We're done.
Thanks
Yep.
for coming, Rich.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, Dickie Lawson.
Yeah, sad movie, good movie. Everyone should give it a second look because it's not what people say it is.
No.
That's my opinion
Yeah,
too.
watch it.
100%.
When are we gonna experience the trolls?
Well, I mean, hopefully by the time this episode comes out,
I don't know if you've been checking.
Yeah.
But now they're selling through early January.
they've extended
So
it.
the experience goes on.
The experience was supposed to last for 3 months, and we're currently in year 2.
No, Donald Trump was elected in November 2016. That's when Trolls the Experience began.
Oh, boy. Oh, brother. David is whipping the ground with his microphone. David has become such a physical comedian on this podcast.
This audio podcast.
Yeah.
He's putting on the Don Rickles bald cap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, DreamWorks Troll the Experience. Trolls the Experience.
It's just they took over some fucking storefront
Yeah.
in Manhattan by force.
It's
as far
been
as I
so
can
long
tell.
since I've experienced my trolls. It's time.
And maybe now we could like pair it up with, I mean, when does World Tour come out?
Well, but the other question is how we get around the fact that we're going to be 4 grown men.
Yeah, how we get
At a
around
children's
We
not-
have a
event.
very
Yeah.
long text thread,
Recording
and we've
equipment.
already talked about all of this.
The World Tour is in April, so we'll see. And if we get to 5,000 patrons, please get us to 5,000 patrons so that
Yeah.
we can have the Trolls Experience in Midtown Manhattan.
But we've talked about this. I think what we would do is it is open during the week. We would pick a weekday
Right. We'll
course.
sneak in the back door.
afternoon
Right.
when there won't be a massive amount of children there, and we will
Right.
call in advance,
And warn
weeks
them.
in advance, and be like, we are 4 adult men. We're going to walk in.
What if we do the Trolls Experience and we come out and we're mad? We've gone
What
mad.
if we come out, we're already troll wigs?
Right, we're just like, what I liked about it is that I went mad. I'm mad, you see. Like, we go like Victorian
Like
mad.
old-timey Batman villain.
You're
mad,
saying we
yeah.
go mad as a hat.
Literally.
Right.
That's what
I'm up
happens.
for it.
Thank you all for listening. Richard, do you have anything specific you need to plug?
I have a cover story about RuPaul that just came out like a month ago, I think. So go read that vanityfair.com or buy it.
Fantastic. And people should read your books if they haven't already.
Well,
All we can
yeah.
do is wait.
All we can do is wait is the one book that I have, and it's out in paperback. It's a lovely new cover.
But you're working on a new one.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. Thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe. Thanks to Andrew Ferragudo for social media, Joe Bowen, and Pat Reynolds for artwork, Lane Montgomery for our theme song. Go to TeePublic for some real nerdy shirts. Next week, we have Beloved after like a 5-year gap in his career.
It's amazing.
He only makes documentaries and TV stuff between 93 and 98.
And then Returns was just an easy project. Just,
right.
Just
the
adapting
only
the
adaptation.
best novel ever written.
Right.
Yeah.
At the behest of Oprah.
Right.
Who like calls him and demands that he return to fiction filmmaking.
You can't not answer that call.
No. It's a crazy blank check, and it's kind of his blank check, but really Oprah's blank check.
Yeah.
It's a movie she wills into existence. So tune in next week for that with guests that we have not settled on yet because we're doing these out of order and way in advance. And as always, directly from the Trolls the Experience FAQ page. Mm-hmm. Will there be trolls at the Experience? Yes! There will be animated, 3D, and in-person trolls at the Experience.
We're all gonna die.
We're gonna die.
Oh my God.
city
You
of
might
Philadelphia?
have to go back and like add this in.
Okay.
Saturday Night Live. And I remember seeing this when it aired and
Yeah.
just being, before I saw Philadelphia, they did a fake commercial for Philadelphia action figures and Courtroom playset.
This is so my kind of bit.
And it is a great fake commercial.
Wow, we gotta find that.
It's really good. And I saw it when I was, when did Philadelphia come out? 93?
93.
Yeah, so I was like 12 and I was
Yeah.
like, that was my impression of Philadelphia long before I saw the film.
Anytime
I found
any
it.
comedy show did that bit, or like Waiting for Guffman doing the like My Dinner with Andre playset, it's obviously just like Venn diagram of my interest. But through, I'd say about 2006, anytime anyone did the bit, which is here is merchandise made for a very, very uncommercial, child-friendly film, always killed me.
It has like a Courtroom playset with an ejection seat. That was like the thing I remember
So
the
good.
most.
There you go.
And of course, we talk about, I did a merchandise spotlight in the Silence of the Lambs episode. And it made me realize, the merchandise spotlights never work because they're me describing an entirely visual thing that the
Yes,
listener can't
exactly.
see.
They've never worked.
And now, once again, we're doing this. We're all just watching a video
all right.
and talking
On
about
silent,
how funny
yes.
it looks.
On silent.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Great clip. Great segment for a great podcast that everybody likes.
Perfect podcast.